Welcome back to the SPL, and forgive me if I'm still having a bit of a chuckle there after iRaffer's attempt at the battle sounds. But I appreciate you guys sticking with us as we move into our second set of the day. Should certainly be a pretty big one. I've got Anatoly Alexeyev right here with me to help break it down for you guys. But I do also want to let y'all know that Neo Olympia update, it's out there for you guys now. That battle pass is available for you all, so go ahead and grab that now. Get some of the cool stuff that's in the game.
I'm a little bit worried, though, because that War Maker Cerberus, man, those
Very
robots,
cool.
the AI, they're taking over.
That's true. That one's very cool. He has the full transformation as well. I think that's the last reward all the way to the end, so hurry up and get it as soon as possible so you can actually make it all the way to the end and pick that one up. But this matchup we're going into Renegades up against Knights. If the first set of the day was one we thought we knew it was going to happen, this one totally feels entirely up in the air. Renegades 3-0 right now, undefeated up against the Knights, the super team that was put together in the offseason. It's hard to call.
Much like the last set yesterday, Renegades up against Dignitas,
yeah.
No one can really predict when those two teams went at it. Both of them were undefeated at the time. Renegades giving Dignitas their very first loss of the split, coming in hot, honestly. A lot of teams that were scrimming against Renegades really understood that Renegades was going to be a serious contender, and PK has to have done their homework to be prepared today.
And they look good. Knights came in and had a very clean win earlier in this week already up against LG, so I expect this team to look strong, but they have a difficult task, man. There have been some times where some small weaknesses have shown through for the Knights, but I still expect them to be able to grab this win. I'm looking in particular towards adapting. This feels like the kind of set to me where adapting has to be adapting, where he has to be the guy that we say is the best player that's ever touched SMITE. That's the kind of player that we're going to need to see come through in this game, and I think there's been some times where he's been a bit passive this phase, where he's waited a little bit, coming on the tail end to fight, couldn't find his moment. He's got to get in there and find it.
He's very diverse in terms of what he's picking a lot in the game, so that's giving a lot of strength to PK to give them that kind of question marks on the enemy team to figure out where adapting's going, where everyone else is going. Playing the Mercury, 1,000 damage credit is a pretty nice way to end the game with a bang. Very short games against Luminosity, and adapting and all of PK have been able to win the sets that they're supposed to win. Against SK it was a 3-0, Space Station Gaming, Trifecta, E-United, and Luminosity are all 3-0s. But the difficult teams that they had to face so far against Rival, against Dignitas, those were longer sets that were more difficult. So it could be a challenge against Renegades that aren't going to go down easy.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be easy at all. We can see young man Aggro back there, I'm sure, getting ready for an interview here in just a few moments. But yeah, this is going to be a tough task for the Knights. It's not just adapting, man. How about Deathwalker? I think we finally have seen over their last two sets full-on Deathwalker, like no other solo laner's better Deathwalker. They're going to need that here up against Nika. I mean, the names on Renegades, as good as they are, they're not quite as storied, right? They're not. They don't have quite the same, like, Worlds vibes or runner-ups and that sort of thing. So I think Knights have to play into that ethos a little bit. They've got to bring in some of that stuff that's made them some of the best in the world.
They definitely do. Deathwalker had a very strong start in yesterday's set against Luminosity, where he invades, and then the stagger invade coming through from EmilZy was a good way to really start off the game. I'm expecting Deathwalker to maybe prioritize the Osiris in this set.
That's a good point. Osiris has really risen up to be a value pick, and he's one that can let you start to run that solo lane, so that can be very important for him. Actually, though, my understanding is that Deathwalker is indeed standing by, so we'll have a chance to hear a little bit of what's on Deathwalker's mind here in the interview.
All right, I'm standing by with Deathwalker here, the solo laner for the Pittsburgh Knights. DW, the Renegades are the hottest team on the block right now. What have you seen from them that's made them look so good?
Nothing so far.
They've just been winning by accident?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, well, the one thing I mainly noticed, obviously I pay attention to my opponents a lot, is Nika played only Jorm and King Arthur. So, you know, maybe we test his limits. Okay. Also, I think they play really well as a team. I think they've been like, even though they've been screaming SML teams a lot, I just think that that team meshes well together. Like they were all really, really good friends even before they made a team. Like they were all hanging out with each other constantly, playing other games as well. So like, it's to expected that that team has good synergy.
I mean, this is what it's those guys as a whole European team. You guys are a whole European team, and I would say if it isn't for the Renegades, you would be the other hottest team on the block. Do you think the EU side still has a bit of an advantage right now?
I think I'm not exactly sure about that. I think a lot of teams are doing super well. It's not just like, you know, the one that has more EU teams is gonna do better, obviously, but there was a slight advantage, I think, when you have everyone from the same region, is that you could scrim even before you moved over here, as opposed to the teams that had mixed teams that couldn't properly scrim because they had higher ping.
Right.
So there's something to it, but I don't think that's the main thing.
So yesterday you guys had the steakhouse comp or whatever it was called. You got a name for your comp today?
Well, yesterday we played what, Stony River, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, we still have a lot of comps. Fiverr, Texas Melt. We have Billy. We haven't played Billy.
Okay.
Billy for baseball.
Billy for Baseball 2 might be coming out today. The Pittsburgh Knights, always with something going on. Thanks, guys. Good luck, and throw it back to you on the desk.
Well, I imagine they can only use that against Trifecta, right? Because
Yeah.
Sam for Soccer...
Oh, you mean SK?
Or SK, excuse me. Yeah, they formerly Trifecta, now SK. Right, you can only play them against the Sam for Soccer team if you're Billy for Baseball 2 or whatever it's going to be.
Somewhere in the rank scene, there's Frank for football as well.
Sure.
What is it? Charles for curling, or Charlie for curling too out there. They're out there. There are a bunch of memes for Sam for Soccer.
He started a trend, has Sam for Soccer, but you obviously heard in between all the jokes that Deathwalker has been paying some close attention.
Yes.
You heard him say that maybe there's a chance Nika's God pool might be limited.
Sure.
To be fair, they haven't played a ton of games, so maybe that's the reason why there isn't so much that's been shown from Nika. But if the Yorm and King Arthur are the things he's comfortable on, those are definitely gods you can ban or pick away and try and limit for Nika.
With 11 games played, yeah, only playing 2 gods, I think it might be a good strategy actually to deploy the Billy strat and see where the limits are actually from that solo lane. But I think if you're trying to isolate Nika a little bit too much, you could run into problems in the other lanes.
I think so too. And potentially if Cherryo ends up over on that lane, where exactly is this guy going to be? It's always the storyline that he used to play from Egypt and he was looking like an all-star even with struggling with ping. So whenever he comes into land, you get to see Cherryo take the Rock Lee weights off and really show us what he can do. And he has absolutely lived up to all of that hype here so far. And like I said earlier, he's going up against Adapting, best player in the world, whatever you want to call him. He's going to have his work cut out for him in this set. And Renegades got the win up against Dignitas, but there were some moments where they looked vulnerable, some opportunities there where a team like Knights can absolutely come in and prioritize and capitalize a lot on Cherryo's shoulders, I think, here in this match.
What a week for Cherryo. Facing Cuvo Fred yesterday to Adapting today.
1A and 1B, right?
Seriously. Hun Bats is going to be the priority pick between these 2 junglers, knowing how much team fighting control present. Not the highest in the KDAs, but still a lot of assists coming through from Cherryo, playing more towards his backline of a Funballer.
I think so too. He's been the guy setting up for Funballer to have some of these crazy KDAs that he's putting up, setting up for Dardez to make some of these plays. And I'm really looking at, I know a lot of the times we talk about how the solo laner and the support can play together, but I'm curious about how Raffer and Cherryo are going to play together in this matchup, because those 2 guys for me have been the set up monsters for Renegades so far and putting these carries into a position to succeed. What's the 1-2 combo that they're going to be able to perform?
Well, a lot of Kepri so far from Raffer, a couple of Terra games coming out of him, so I'm expecting more defensive options from Raffer, even though he loves to play aggressive. The Ares game he had yesterday wasn't super successful. Good counter from Dignitas, getting the beads early from Trickstank to make sure those pulls weren't a factor. So Cherryo, if he does have defense options from Raffer, probably going to go for aggressive guys like the Daji, the Naja, Circuit, guys that are going to want to dive that backline.
Something that'll set up to put Raffer into a position to continue to do well. He's had a monster start to this phase so far for Renegades, and struggled a little bit when it came to doing things like the battle sounds. Hopefully, we can get some questions about that as well here. Raffer standing by for his interview.
All right, I've got Raffer with me here, the support for Renegades. Raffer, you guys knew that you would have a bunch of games back to back to back with the way your schedule ended up working out. Has it been as hard as you expected to play this many games in a row, or has it been easier?
It's been easier. It's basically the RNG gauntlet right now, but we're enjoying it. You know, it's not too stressful of a pace. You know, we do have a good amount of days to rest and scrim and stuff, so it's not the worst.
Especially when you're playing this well, right? I mean, especially when you can keep this momentum rolling. How do you think you can do that against the Pittsburgh Knights today? Because they have a pretty different play style than Dignitas that you played yesterday.
I think the biggest obstacle we have is the fact that they saw a lot of stuff we played yesterday, so they've seen our strengths. I feel like Dig maybe should have seen it too, to some degree, but they didn't capitalize on it, and I'm grateful for that. But obviously it's going to be a lot harder versus PK today.
Are you glad that yesterday's Scent went all 5 so that you can get some practice on coming back from losses and adjusting instead of just stomping out 3-0?
I would have preferred a 3-0 stomp just so I could just chill a lot more, but and for bragging rights, of course. But I did predict it would be a 3-2. Can't remember to who, but obviously it was to us. I can't remember who I said that to. It was a good set. It was really enjoyable. I think it was probably one of the best in the league so far, in my opinion. From what I've seen, it's probably not a lot, but
Hey, it was a lot of fun to watch. I think today's set will be as well. Hope you can keep on scootering over your competition. Raffer's got a scooter. That's the joke. Throw it back to you guys on the desk.
Yeah, who doesn't know Raffer has a scooter, Egger? You don't need to clarify on that one. But you're exactly he's exactly right, I think, to say that was the best set that we saw yesterday, or at least up there with them. And I expect this one to be another one that can match that. I mean, Renegades have come in better than we could have expected, despite some of the troubles they had getting here, and I don't expect it to slow down.
I think the Rival versus PK set was also very impressive. That was a 5-game set to watch. There was another one where I believe
SK had a really good one where they went long against Dig, I believe. That one was
yeah,
good,
that one went 5 games. That was exciting. But yeah, I think this one definitely takes the cake between those two sets. Renegades coming in hot, beating out SK, Trifecta, 3-0 sweeps, and against Dignitas, definitely, just eliminating the momentum that Dignitas had, finally giving them their first loss.
Well, I'm very excited to see how this is going to go. Let's go ahead and get ready. The picks and bans should be getting started here in just a moment. Let's move right into it. The Knights in that first pick situation. And this is critical to me. How are these picks and bans going to go, right? Where's Jormungandr going to get prioritized? Osiris going to get prioritized? Freya, the Unbots that you mentioned for these junglers. There's so many strong game-changing picks out there. You can't ban everything. So which ones are they picking over what? Which ones are they going to let through? And which ones do they think they have counter picks to? We're about to see it all unfold right here.
Yeah, and already respecting the threat of the EmilZy between Dardez and Funballer. Whenever they play the EmilZy, they just pop off completely. I think in their set up against Dignitas, whoever was playing that god had what is it, like a 6 KDA or higher, I believe.
Yeah, certainly impressive as the Jormungandr banned out right away along with the Achilles. So Freya still available. Very obviously Unbot's going to make it through, not quite worth getting banned, but one that you could see get prioritized here in this set as well. Najaz still floating around. I mean, a lot of people have been banning. Clearly Kabrakan up against Renegade. Is that a pick that they like to play and want to grab up here? It's a lot that's floating out there, as King Arthur even still available and has not been selected.
Jing was a very popular pick in the beginning of Renegade's start, playing 4 out of 6 games. In the yesterday set, also playing, I believe, just the 1 game up against Dignitas. So no surprise that you're going to want to get PK. Very comfortable. Vote also having a game against LG where it was banned away from him. He played against it, or he played it first 2 games, banned away from him in the 3rd game, wanting it very beginning start of this best of 5 set.
Terra being hovered for Renegades as the Knights select Jing first overall. Going to prioritize a pick for Vote and a safe pick as well for that duo lane. A lot of the times they're left to their own devices nowadays anyway, so they'll have plenty of time to farm. That means Renegades get to snatch up 2 back-to-back. Terra will be first for a huge team fighting presence. I imagine that'll go to Raffer, and then Chronos coming through as well. That one could potentially go to Dardez or Funball, but I got to imagine that's going to Funball.
No surprise to see Osiris locked in immediately from Deathwalker. Also, EmilZy having a great Terra showing forces Renegades to, pluck that away from them. But this Fafnir, I think that PK is going to do the same exact thing they did against LG in game number 1. Have Deathwalker and also EmilZy put pressure on Cherryo's speed.
Well, King Arthur has come through, so maybe that can help out. King Arthur is one that can do well in those early levels and hit multiple abilities. So if it is an early speed buff invade, they've got to make sure that Nika has his eyes open, that if he potentially needs to rotate over there to make sure the buff can't get stripped away. We saw how much it hurt Mollusk.
That's true, even committing to the Deathbane to secure that one. I think that Renegades, outside of also having Nika maybe make that rotation, half rotation, whatever, is to place a ward around the speed buff, maybe around the back camps to see if there is going to be a rotation from EmilZy's Fafnir.
Yeah, maybe even have Raffer nearby, since so often they do that 2v2 start over there anyway. He could certainly be kind of floating around just to make sure that that doesn't get stolen away. But I like this Fafnir being prioritized early anyway. I mean, probably wasn't get taken with the Terra already on the board, but it could definitely get banned. And with Jing Osiris, and maybe even potentially a magical ADC to come through too, that could be a ton of synergy with the attack speed. Plus remember, Adapting loves to play the likes of Arachnes and Mercury, stuff like that. That'll synergize great.
And also Renegades not locking in their jungler. Yeah, I was going to say how Hunbatz is probably going to be a priority pick, but neither team going for it quite yet. Renegades banning away junglers, PK still banning away a hunter, knowing that they already have Jing locked for themselves. Could potentially see a soul out of PK as well, trying to synergize with the Fafnir. So maybe Renegades could want to pluck that one away.
Yeah, maybe Freya. I mean, that's still on the table.
Yeah, that's
hard to believe at this point. So that's one Renegades might want to try and ban. I don't know if they want to grab it for themselves and they already have the Chronos. So if they don't get it here, that could very easily end up going over to give them a 2-hunter composition and maybe even trying to trust that one in the hands of Dardez. Or, excuse me, Zyrhoes.
Yeah, Zyrhoes is always uncertain of where he's going to go, but with the Jormungandr ban...
I can't believe he let him do it. You know he loves the Jorm.
Yeah,
come on.
He does love the Jorm. But you don't want to have to deal with this Jorm in the mid to late game. His scaling is actually really obnoxious, and the way PK have been playing with their aggressive frontliners, Zyrhoes on anything impactful, whether it's Morrigan or Jormungandr, is such a threat. So probably going to be leaning on more AoE damage. That's something that PK is currently lacking with their first 3 picks. Maybe a Zeus, could easily see the Zhang Kui even.
Yeah, but I think that he did play the Zeus yesterday too, so very likely that that's something that the Knights could pick up here. And it looks like Renegades worked it about the same way we did, came all the way down to that Zeus being an option there for the Knights and banned that one away. I think that's a very strong ban from him. Something that he's played recently, something that fits this composition well. And then the Knights, another really good ban. Take this Unbot off the table. Don't give all that control over to Cherryo. Try and force him to do a little bit more work if he wants to impact these team fights.
Well, Naja's available, Sarketa's still open, Dodgy is something that both of these junglers like. So still up in the air is Renegades and also PK's jungle pick. Mercury is something that adapting leans on a little bit. Not really sure how often Cherryo has played or practiced with it for him to pick it here, but instead gonna be able to, this is probably going mid.
I think so too.
Neith. And it's a good idea to get that global pressure to allow Cherryo to win the 1v1 in air quotes against adapting.
Well, right back towards the Mercury, though, for adapting. No big surprise that he wants the hyper carry potential and the soul coming in. So it is going to be the double basic attacker composition with this soul, then very likely going over to Zyrhoes. This is interesting. I mean, I'm certain Zyrhoes could play it, but I feel like we don't see him play things like soul that often.
No, but he definitely played a lot of it way back in Season 3. So this doesn't surprise me that he's locked it in here today. It's a very safe god. You got to separate to be able to get out of danger with Osiris being played from Deathwalker, Fafnir, Mercury. That's pretty aggressive front line. Not too many peel options from PK, though. So if they're not the ones engaging, that could be problematic for not only Zyrhoes' soul, but Vote's Jing.
But can they even engage? Because now you have to worry about that World Weaver at any time to kind of cut off your gank potential. And I'm worried that they've got a ton of pick potential here on the side of Renegades. Maybe it's not like, you know, a Thor or something that crashes it from the sky, but with that World Weaver, that opens up the door for them in both directions. We'll end up seeing totally how these picks are going to work out for them. The Knight and Renegades, the big match of the day, just about to get underway. Get it over to the casters.
That's us, the casters. Tom and Taco bringing you the business for this one. Renegades yesterday coming off of a large win. Dignitas arguably the stronger of the two when you look at Dig and PK. But when it comes down to it, Pittsburgh Knights a different matchup altogether. And you were talking off screen, a spicy draft.
And I think that's actually a little bit of a benefit for Pittsburgh Knights that they had a chance to sit down and basically analyze that top matchup between Renegades and Dignitas yesterday. And I think that's why we see a little bit more diversity from the Renegades draft today.
Yeah, throwing a little bit of a mix-up here. I like the fact that the Renegades are just, this is the trust Cherryo game. The Chronos is there, and we've seen how nuts that the Chronos can be, likely to be in the hands of Funball. But I mean, you pick a Kali, you're saying to the jungler, win us the game, sir.
Something that I have noticed, though, for sure from Pittsburgh Knights' current composition is how much mobility their carries are really capable of. Jingwei, Mercury, Soul, these are not easy gods to target lock down, and I think that's where the pickup of the Neith was a really smart adaptation for Renegades here, but I'm still not completely sold on that one adjustment of the World Weaver being enough to really assist that Kali.
We'll see. The Fafnir is going to work out wonders with this composition. I need to see a Witchblade at the very least. I'm looking for Witchblade, Midgardian Mail. Yeah, this is old school F-Dot, where we're asking for a Witchblade minute 1. But look at the draft. I mean, this is Fafnir's dream draft. So
It could go both ways for these teams, though. There's so much objective control that either side can't really afford to be caught sleeping on the other.
not at all. I love this part. Yeah, I love that part where Raffer goes to the fake dab and he's like, nah, not me. Deathwalker playing the Osiris. That's definitely him. Dardez on the Chronos and Funball on the Neith. Tom and Melissa on the broadcast and Doug on the ones and twos. Taco. It's always odd calling you Melissa.
Yeah, I don't think anybody says my name.
Usually I'm a first name guy. I like to call Hindu Graham. I call Zyrhoes because Joachim is a little bit hard to say. But in general, I'm a name guy, but you'll always be Taco.
Don't worry. You're not the only one. I feel like it's more comfortable for myself even at this point. I mean, I've had the gamer tag since I was in like 6th grade.
Yeah, that's fair.
When you're 10 years old, this is like a 15-year endeavor now.
Diving deep for sure. Renegades, Pittsburgh Knights, some longtime players here. Adapting's been here. Not actually, it's interesting. Adapting wasn't part of that like OG launch tournament crew. It was like right afterwards. But when you look at these other guys, certainly been here for the ride. The fans at home, despite Renegades' recent push, are still feeling Pittsburgh Knights.
It's hard to go against the Pittsburgh Knights, man, when you look at a 5-man all-star roster, because the Knights really are nothing short of 5 all-star individuals. But that's not to say that the Renegades' performance as a unit is something that can't match up to that. And I think that what Renegades have been able to deliver so far in terms of gameplay, I fully expect them to match up to this task against the Pittsburgh Knights today.
I mean, that's the thing, is that sure, if you looked at this on paper, but I've been saying that since, what is this, week 10 of the SPL? We've been saying that for a long time. Cherryo looking for the invade. Vote is right behind him. The stun is strong. I don't think this is going to be a kill, but the purple will go the way of Renegades. They're the team that beat undefeated Dignitas, right? This
They
team
are.
can absolutely bring it.
This team can definitely bring it, but I think that Pittsburgh Knights might be a little bit expectant, and that's why they're throwing Deathwalker onto the Osiris, and EmilZy with this Fafnir as well. Going to be a little bit more aggressive in the early game, and Nika already confined to that T1 tower line. As long as EmilZy is by Deathwalker, I don't really think that there's going to be much of an opportunity here for this King Arthur to really develop a heavy lead.
That's the idea there. You know, we've seen a number of takes against King Arthur. Good beads from Dardez, gets rid of adapting. When he first came out, it was really just try to cripple him down with RDO. Then it was kind of match sustain with the Camazotz. Now he's been taken down a little bit, sure, but it's also just fight him. And Osiris is absolutely the character that can do that. The natural mitigation, the access to low cooldown abilities. Certainly a character that can match with what King Arthur's trying to do.
It's interesting watching, though, how both of these teams are trying to see what they can and can't get away with for the other. I like that gank attempt from adapting, but it's just a little unfortunate on the timing side. Cherryo could be in some trouble here. In fact, he's just going to let himself die to the tower. Got caught out, I think, by adapting when he was trying to wrap around for a gank against both.
Yeah, Cherryo on the other side of the jungle. One assist does go the way of adapting, but nobody gets the kills, so first blood bounty still on the table. The tower doesn't get additional gold for that one.
It's nothing for Cherryo to really be concerned about. It would have been a lot
Yeah.
worse had adapting actually connected and been able to find a pickup there, but Cherryo does get punished for his over-aggressive positioning. I think that he was just intending to continue stripping away the XP and the buffs from Pittsburgh Knights duo side. It's just adapting knew better. I mean, he hasn't seen this Kali for a hot minute, never
Yeah.
showed his face in mid lane. Might as well poke your head around your own jungle and see if you might find him there.
Kali, a later game character, not going to be able to really fight out of that one, so that is the right call, to be honest with you, believe it or not. Just jumping in. Shoutouts to Order Tower, our MVP of the game so far.
0-0 still on the board line as well. I think that's the funniest part, is that when no one gets the kill, but you see Cherryo with the death, and you always think it's probably been a camp, right? But at least it wasn't the camp execution.
Yeah, that's always the worst. I'll never forget, man. Oh, we've done some troll stuff here in the past. One of my favorites was season 2 or so when the casters were doing replays. I took the replay of when we were giving an MVP every match. I gave MVP to either the Fire Giant or a Tower because of the
Fire Giant.
It was the Fire Giant that got MVP. You remember that?
I remember that.
Yeah, Fire Giant got MVP because it killed 1 or 2 players and like.
That was the Monday through Sunday grind.
Oh yeah, that was it. That was fun. Second only to when Eager lost because of not the Quan jungle. I maintain it was a different story, but the replay of the slow-mo locking in Quan of the moment of the game, that was big for sure. So we've had some fun moments. Cherryo here. I don't know how much fun he had dying to the tower, but he might laugh about it later, depending on if they win or not. I think that's a big deal. If Renegades win, it's a hilarious moment.
It is a little bit of a setback, though, for Cherryo. All jokes aside, it was without a doubt the best case scenario for him that adapting only gets an assist out of it, but it still slows down Cherryo's natural jungle pathing. And with that in mind, I think the Pittsburgh Knights are also able to play a little bit more aggressively from mid lane. Granted, that wasn't really able to take place because it's Zeroes on the Soul. This guy's going to need a little bit of ramp-up time and some itemization online first before you really start to feel some heavy impact. But it's just map presence that I think Pittsburgh Knights were able to better establish in their favor because of that one death from Cherryo. It didn't really impact Renegades' own jungle buff camp secures by any means, but it's just something that I think Renegades are going to need to be mindful of should they continue trying to send Cherryo to look for invades.
Pittsburgh Knights with the soul of the mid lane on Zyrhoes. This is a character that, man, it's very interesting. I've heard a lot of pros, because Funballer was playing it, not just yesterday, but also in one of their sets previously. And a couple of the pros were like, man, Soul, what a weird pick, not a good character. Zero's playing her here. I mean, there's a lot of pressure that comes out of that lane.
Better reserved to dual lane, in my opinion, because Soul can be such a strong split-pushing character, and I think one of the main reasons why people don't tend to prioritize her for the mid lane is because, yes, Disapparate can provide you with some survivability, but you also don't really have that all-in power spike that you're looking for. You're going to need at least 1 or 2 items online before you really start to feel like you can swing.
Uh-oh. This could be a fight. Cherryo half HP already. Jumps out. Not so bad. There's a blink forward from adapting, though. Looking for Dardez, who pops the beads. Not enough damage. Pittsburgh Knights looked like they were kind of stutter-stepped there.
Pittsburgh Knights were in position. It was just good body blocks from iRaffer to prevent the hammer as an option for EmilZy there. I think he was trying to find the snipe in between the two, but Dardez will get out.
Yeah, it looked like they like, all right, we're going to go for it. No. Yeah. No. Yeah. No. Yeah. 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 Oh, too late.
Once they realized how low Dardez's mana bar was, I think that's when adapting gave the green light to want to chase, but there just wasn't enough left in the tank either for Pittsburgh Knights by then. Both teams had used cooldowns to try and secure those left mid Harpies, and I believe they went in favor of the Renegades, actually.
Yeah, they were able to snatch the experience and the gold for those guys. Totem of Coup here, nice and even. 3 and 2 for Pittsburgh and Renegades, respectively. I think the Soul start, talking about mage builds is pretty interesting. Mage builds used to be so stagnant. Now, an interesting start from Soul, and I think that the reason that Soul could go there was because Deathwalker was kind of expected to get some of this pressure, get that MP5, let Zeroes not have any sustain.
I also think that Zyrhoes just, he might be prioritizing a demonic grip because it does provide him a little bit of that pen shred with the demonic passive, and not only that, but Soul has her heat passive. And if he wants to go auto attack oriented, Dardez gonna be forced out of his own rewind as Zyrhoes drops the supernova.
Just an all-in. Ult for ult. Soul ultimate is tough to make impactful, whereas the Chronos ult is always what you want, right? So I think I favor the Chronos there. I don't favor Vote for jumping in here as Cherryo's shown up, but very curious positioning from Funball, who walks in and tries to deal with adapting. Low, but the ultimate will spin. Cherryo, the dot good enough, but upstairs. Renegades Hunter loses the 1v1. Cherryo is the first to die and the first to get first blood. That's got to be a one-time thing.
The Funballer just took too much damage when he was going into that World Weaver to set up Cherryo. Team player, as always. And Deathwalker could be in a little bit of trouble himself, but Nika's gonna have to let that one slip back into the tower line. Deathwalker did lose his Lord of the Afterlife in the exchange for King Arthur's ultimate, but all in all, pretty good trade for the Renegades, if you ask me. I feel like Pittsburgh Knights should have possibly had 2 picks there instead of just the 1.
I agree. I saw Vote go in, and that was rough, but Cherryo, like I said, making history here. I'm going out on a limb here, but I'm going to say this with confidence. Cherryo is the first person in a Pro League game to both die first and get first blood. Nobody's...
I think Frostiak might have something to say about that.
Really?
Really.
Tell me,
Frostiak
though.
has to have the highest record of
Dying.
player participation involved with first blood.
I'll give you that, but the ability to die
To die
like
and
a
get it at the same
camp-
time simultaneously, yes. But
Like a camp
I'm not
or a
even trolling.
tower?
I swear I've seen Frostiak do that before.
We have seen
He is
Frostiak die
number
to a
one.
camp.
He
We
is
have
number
seen
one at that.
Frostiak die to a camp. Man, just when I thought I could go all out and say it. We'll see, though. Trust me, somebody has the stats on Twitter. That's always how that works. That is always how that works. Right now,
We got our very own Sidon.
yeah, we do. Hey, Zayden. You can't see me. Renegades and Pittsburgh Knights. They've seen a little bit of each other. 10 minutes in, Fire Giant spawns. Just 1-1.
And I know a lot of people are probably wondering, why are these matches so slow-paced now? And the big reason being, a lot of these teams are just drafting because they want to play for the team fighting stage.
Right.
I think that right now, SMITE is currently in a state where even if you develop an early game lead, it's pretty easy to overturn all of that from one bad team fight between the 17 to 22 minute range. And I think that that's also part of the reason why at the pro level, teams don't want to take that chance. They would much rather just play things a little bit more passive, play things with respect to the other on the map, look for invades obviously where you can and picks where you can. But for the most part, this is just a farm-heavy game.
I think the gold disparities are less important. It used to be that 2K was the beginning of a lead, and once you get to 5,000, it's like, oh, you've like got the game. A 5,000 gold lead now is, it feels like a team fight. If you guys have a 5,000 gold lead at 16 minutes, one team fight turns into a tower to Gold Fury, and now we're 1,000 gold behind, which might as well be even. I think it's that aspect, and also the secondary aspect of gold. The spooling was amplified a while back, and so you can kind of just wait it out. If you're 8,000 gold down, I say to my teammates at a pro level, I go, all right, let's chill, let's farm. Maybe they get a Fire Giant, but you know what, 30 minutes, 28 minutes, we're good.
This really is anybody's game, though, because breaking down the composition specifically, I would probably favor the Renegades in terms of first, but Pittsburgh Knights have so much reinitiation opportunity, I think. But it is going to be a little bit more complicated if this match goes too late, because then you have to deal with the Cherryo and Dardez effect on this Chronos and Kali.
That's what I'm staring at. That's really what I'm staring at, is just Cherryo and Dardez. They are going to be the ones that have to carry this team into the late game, and honestly, they can.
And I'm not sure how to feel about it either, because it's weird seeing Funballer on the Neith. Deathwalker going to use the Lord of the Afterlife trying to chase down Nika, but this is a one-man assault so far from Deathwalker because the rest of Pittsburgh Knights are on the Gold Fury.
Dardez is here, though, and his presence alone should scare Pittsburgh Knights off of the objective, and it will. And, you know, it's Dardez has been such a power for this team. And Funball has played Neith in the past in some high-octane games and done some carrying on the character that rarely seems like she can hard carry. So I'm with it.
But it's just that Funballer has been doing so much work for Renegades
He
out
has.
of all three sets they've played so far, and it's been on the hyper carries. It's been Jing, it's been Chronos. Even the Soul, I think, is arguably a late game hyper carry from that ADC position. But here on the Neith, he's just almost about to die if he's not careful. Vote only needs a couple more autos to finish the job, but Adapting's going to take care of it instead, unless Cherryo has something
here.
to say.
There it is, the stun, and it's done. The ultimate out of the Neith, not enough to get the kill. That's how you play Neith. People always ask me, you know, well, Neith, she's so unsafe. How do you play it? You have a world-class jungler help you out.
Hoping you have the Cherryo to rotate for you.
Yeah.
That's how you play Neith.
Yeah, you just hope you got Cherryo in the jungle. Luckily for Funball, he does. Homie shows up, turns it around. Adapting falls down. That's huge. 2-1-0 here for Cherryo on the Kali. Starting off with the Crusher and the booties. After this, I expect all basic attack items.
Really, I mean, Funballer did everything right, though, to be fair.
Yeah.
The relics timers of the beads and the Aegis were both really well utilized. And I actually really like the fact that he went for this Blackthorn Hammer because he already has 20% cooldown reduction from the Transcendence and Mage's Blessing. So when you add the passive of the Rune Forge, he's going to have 30% as long as he retains his mana and make sure that that's topped up. But 30% cooldown reduction for a Neith this early on into the game is where Renegades will finally start to have a little bit more wiggle room to look for gank opportunities in comparison to Pittsburgh Knights.
I'm also glad you brought up the timing of it. When it comes down to the reason hunters are the carry, the reason a hunter is because their basic attacks scale so incredibly well with their items, and so late game they'll hit you for a zillion with their basic attacks. That's why building a hunter for pure ability-based damage is kind of rough because it theoretically falls off versus your basic attacks. Well, at 14 minutes when you've got 30% CDR, this is when you can flex this ability build, and we should expect to see a lot from Neith kind of right now, and then later on go into more for the basic attacks if that's what Funball wants to do.
Right now, though, all Funballer really needs to focus on is finding a target for Cherryo. And I think Adapting's made it pretty clear that duo lane is the lane that he wants to shut down. And with the way that Funballer's been playing the past couple of weeks, I do not blame him in the slightest. But another Gold Fury attempt pool is going to come out from Pittsburgh Knights. Cherryo already blinking in, though, and trying to interrupt.
Yeah, there's the ultimate from the Neith as well. Cherryo will chase Pittsburgh Knights off of the objective. Vote almost loses his life, does lose the ultimate. But again, that's all Renegades need to do. Looking at what Dardez can bring, they're not a team that are going to steal the objective away from you. That's why we see Renegades jump in early. If this was a more traditional mage, maybe we see them wait for the steal and that sort of waiting game where Pittsburgh Knights has to peel themselves. Renegades go, we're not stealing this, we just have to stop it, jump in, get a stun, get a Neith ultimate, and that causes everybody from PK to run away.
Something else that could be problematic for Pittsburgh Knights as this game develops is there isn't really an ideal person to buy anti-heal for the squad. Like Pestilence, sure, you can toss one of those onto Deathwalker, no problem, maybe even EmilZy. But you don't really want your soul, who's already made it evident that she wants to prioritize in-hand based damage, by the Divine Ruin.
I mean, that said, it is power, it is pen, and soul does have real
but
wide
it's so
AoE.
awkward on the current build path that Zyrhoes has already opted for, and it might help out a little bit, but I don't think that there will be a frequent enough application of anti-heal against the Renegades composition that would actually be detrimental for the Renegades.
That is a fair statement there. You know, a lot of times we see the souls kind of go Bancroft first, so maybe with that extra item slot, Zyrhoes will come up with it a little bit later, because I'm with you. The reason I'm pushing for the soul to build the Divine Ruin is because ain't nobody else can do it. Yeah, nobody really can. Adapting, sure, Brawler's Beat Stick will fit in the build. Again, you'll take power and pen, but I mean, he doesn't spread it well at all. He's single target. Vote, same deal. Deathwalker, really same deal outside of the Pesty, right? So Zero's kind of the only option. You're right, not the AoE. To be fair, though, Renegades don't have access to AoE either. So we always talk about I always talk about the equation that needs to be balanced with respect to your composition. Again, like all things in the game, it's meta game dependent, meaning who are you playing against very specifically. And so neither team really has all the AoE in the game, and that's totally fine. You're not mix matching.
But I think Renegades have a much better pick first comp, just like Cherryo's trying to display right now. Vote's already used out of the Aegis, but got rooted in place, forced to airstrike away deep into the backline for Pittsburgh Knights. EmilZy now trying to get away with the Draconic form, but iRaffer's got the perfect zone duty. This might be Renegades' pull on the Gold Fury.
They're going to look for it, the damage that they can dish out. Very different. Kali not at that point that Mercury's at right now as he's finished his Rage Blade. So Renegades will, they're very specific job here, and I think this is important to point out because the majority of compositions talk about, again, with respect to the mid lane mage and how different they are, the game will be played differently. And if we see more traditional compositions with Poseidon or whatnot, we see these teams stick to this Gold Fury a little bit more. Cherryo in trouble. He'll be able to get out. And try to play a little bit more aggressively. But because there's no steal potential, everybody's a little bit gun shy.
I wouldn't necessarily factor it as the steal potential. I do think that Renegades probably have a much better objective secure because you can always utilize the Neith backflip with the Spirit Arrow. get a decent amount of burst damage.
I mean, you could also solo. Like, it's neither of them have great
Supernova's
objective
just slow,
security.
though.
Yeah.
I think that Supernova's slower than in comparison to the burst damage from Funballer, but even then, it's not ideal. I think that's the best fit. Is
exactly
that
what I'm saying.
neither of these teams really has an ideal way to secure the objective, so both of these teams are typically going to pay their respects, and it really hasn't even been about the Gold Fury. Both times that the Pittsburgh Knights have pulled the Gold Fury, they've gotten it fairly low. They brought it down to 50, 60%.
Yep.
They just did not want to pursue it. They'd much rather take the team fight instead. But as it draws later and later, I just can't help but feel as though this is only benefiting the Renegades.
I have to agree as well, because you look at Pittsburgh Knights and they have adapting here, but Cherryo's just going to get better and better. No ultimate. Okay. I don't know what that one was. Cherryo not getting better in that exchange. 25%. Renegades playing with fire here. And Pittsburgh Knights will get the Gold Fury. iRaffer pops the ultimate, and Renegades looking for revenge. iRaffer's gonna die, and that's a problem, as Vote walks away with it. Adapting misses the dash, but Dardez likely to fall. EmilZy jumps in, and Deathwalker takes down Funball. Dardez goes down to the mid lane monster. Zyrhoes looks good, and it's a deicide adapting with the kill on a Nika. 6 kills in total, 5 of them in one team fight.
Well, if you don't want to worry about the late game from Renegades, I guess you just bring it to them in the mid game instead. A heads-up play from the whole of the Pittsburgh Knights, and that all comes as a result of Cherryo getting himself picked for, honestly, a pretty heavy misplay. You got to drop that ultimate. At least escape, use the ult if need be, but Akali dying without pressing 4,
Rough.
that is just not a good look right now for the Renegades, and this Fire Giant is going to hurt, because now Pittsburgh Knights have a surefire way to actually expand this gold lead by just dropping every single one of the towers still standing on the map.
Exactly. Before I was saying, you know, that 5,000 gold lead doesn't mean what it used to. A 6,500 gold lead is a little bit different than a 5K gold lead, but not by much. The Fire Giant, certainly something different. 21:20 on the clock, and Pittsburgh Knights stealing away the momentum in this game. Renegades kind of had the early game tied with Pittsburgh, but one fantastic team fight, and everything coming up Millhouse for Pittsburgh. Players located here in the mid lane, 2 players on the left side. Renegades looking to respond.
There's also just a really good flank from Deathwalker. And the way that Pittsburgh Knights kind of separated the last 4 remaining members of Renegades from each other, everybody was just looking to try and like last-minute peel for Dardez, but iRaffer and Nika, I think, went too far in front initially.
Sure.
And they abandoned their backline.
Yeah, that was a little bit rough. Kind of just looked discombobulated in that team fight, Renegades did. Shoutouts to Yoda. So I want to see them a little bit more controlled. I want to see a little bit more cohesion. That seemed like, honestly, they were taken by surprise. That was the first time I've seen Renegades really just frazzled. Pittsburgh looking for the tier 2 in mid lane. A little bit of defense, but there's the all-out retreat from Renegades. Deathwalker zoning 4 players, and here comes adapting. 1 crit's good, spins around 2. Zyrhoes and EmilZy pick up 1 each. The retreat from Pittsburgh after the ultimate coming out from a number of players. Dardez rewinds behind the squad, slowed, and adapting will take him down. 9-2. Pittsburgh adds 3. You think this is it?
I think this is it. That's 3 members dead for 30 seconds or more, and a Min Phoenix that's already toast. Draconic form from EmilZy, and that means go for Pittsburgh Knights. Titan already being brought down to half health. Cherryo tries to make a last stand, but there is no last stand for him to find. And the Titan's already dead.
Look at the player cam right there. Cherryo not thrilled, and honestly, shouldn't be.
Snowballed. That is what we mean. When we say a snowball of a game, that is it from start to finish. It was about 4 minutes in total after that Gold Fury went down. I'm a little bit in disbelief here at how fast that game collapsed for the Renegades, but you can't let Pittsburgh Knights get fired.
Well, it's interesting because SMITE is a very deep game with multiple characters, multiple variables, and sometimes it can be hard to analyze. I'm going to do the desk's work for him. Cherryo gets picked. That leads to the Gold Fury. That leads to a team fight. That leads to the Fire Giant. That leads to the end of the game. Sometimes it's just that simple. That's really just what happened here. Cherryo got picked at the wrong time in the wrong place, and because of that, the team will wind up with a 0.
Really well played by Vogt to start things off, kind of baiting himself, I think, in that duo lane by pushing up as far as he did, gave the illusion that Cherryo would actually have an opportunity to gank him there, and, well, heads up plays from the guys in PK.
Clean stuff. Pittsburgh Knights coming into this one the way they need to. After the win against Dignitas, Renegades were going to come in here with something extra on game 1.
A big game here to get things started for the Knights. This is exactly the kind of intro that they need to make. The Renegades get punched in the mouth over quickly, too. I mean, I was able to, as we walked up here, I can kind of talk to Ro a little bit. He hit me with the, that's why we call it Texas melt, baby.
That's Texas melt.
Because it really did melt them, didn't it? They kind of were able to group a little bit sooner than Renegades, find a couple key picks, and they never really had a chance.
A good timing to win because you don't want to go to late game against a Kali and a Chronos.
Right.
And it all came down to, honestly, the 1v1 that Cherryo tried to take alongside the Neith ultimate coming out. Great beats and airstrike. Cherryo a little late in terms of using that Kali ultimate. And then afterwards, the Gold Fury fight. Pittsburgh Knights force this one out. 4-on-5 for Renegades. Trying to engage onto Zyrhoes. To separate, gets him out of the danger zone. A quick pick counter iRaffer. Everything going out Pittsburgh Knights' way in terms of the Fire Giant after the fact.
And this was even with the Knights having, I think, a couple of things just not going their way. Remember that play Adapting makes where he's trying to gank in the dual lane onto Funball, and he gets that sick blink over the wall from Cherryo to get the stun that stops him, and then they end up not getting the kill. In fact, Adapting dies, and very nearly Vogt falls too. And I really thought that was going to be a play that could really hurt him to swing the momentum in favor of Renegades. But Knights did such a big job recovering from that, not taking that spill too hard, and still looking for further grouping opportunities.
And the game was pretty close, I would say, even before that Gold Fury fight. Even though
it was very close.
Like early game, for whatever reason, I think Cherryo decided to try to be aggressive, look for those back camp invades, realizing, uh-oh, I've been spotted, and he had no way out of that one, so he had to sacrifice himself under that tier 2 tower. Lost a lot of time farming, gave a early assist to an Adapting.
That's right. No one on Renegades even technically got the kill credit for that one, right? It was just the assist that Adapting got, but still that one ended up going the way of the Knights. In this composition, they were able to get all these basic attackers to center around EmilZy on this Fafnir, and it really is a tale as old as time, right? When you're able to get 2 basic attackers and the Mercury in the jungle all together, they burn through objectives, they burn through team fights, whatever it is, don't even give you a chance to get your rewinds or your ultimates off that get you out of those fights. Renegades never got to sort of do the picks around the Neith I think they wanted.
And I thought it was going to be Neith middle for
Me too.
sure. I thought that Funballer, it wasn't his style to play the Neith. He wants to be aggressive, but against a Jingwei, like, how aggressive can you really be? She's going to come back to lane and be a Jingwei anyway. So I guess for that sakes, it makes sense. But if you stick the Neith in the mid lane, at least you have the potential to gank either side lane without anyone accidentally intercepting that World Weaver.
That's right. You have a lot less variables, I would say, in your way when you're trying to set that up. I had some worries going into this one about Zyrhoes playing the Soul, just because it felt like it wasn't quite what he likes to play as much. But like you said, he had plenty of background on this one and absolutely was able to come in and deliver.
Good patience from Zyrhoes. He never really put himself in a too dangerous position. And knowing Zyrhoes, he kind of likes to play dangerously, living life on the edge. But whenever you have the aggression coming out there, I believe that EmilZy on this Fafnir was just all over the place once he got that Fire Giant buff. That was just all in strategy after they had Fire Giant.
But they did both play a somewhat similar composition in here, right? The basic attack-focused jungler, 2 basic attackers in the carry roles for this team, and then you have the set-uppy support for them both to try and get it going. It's just the Knights, though, who were able to kind of light that fuse sooner than the Renegades here in this one. It only took a little bit of an overstep from Cherryo, and they got punished. So I think if you're Renegades, it's not all doom and gloom. That's certainly a kind of win you can bounce back from. Just because it was over quickly doesn't mean I think that they're outmatched here.
And also, PK allowed Nika to get the Arthur. It wasn't like that big of a deal for them.
That's right,
knowing
yeah.
how...
It was 6th pick, I think, yeah.
Yeah, it was indeed right before the secondary ban phase. In fact, PK could have drafted the Arthur for themselves, first pick or even before secondary phase for themselves, but instead wanting to lean on the Osiris a little bit more. Deathwalker looks so comfortable on this Lord of the Afterlife.
And it's been a popular pick for a reason. It gives you plenty of early presence and can be quite the harasser in those grouped up team fights as well, and served Deathwalker quite well in this game. A nice return to form for Pittsburgh Knights, and they're keeping this ball rolling. They've been on a bit of a roll lately. Keeping that going right now is the Jormungandr, Amuzin Kabal band out, Achilles, Merlin. This lines up pretty well. So Knights last time passed on that King Arthur. I wonder if they're going to go right back to the Jing. I think that's what they first picked overall last time.
Yep.
Do they want to grab that one again? Maybe prioritize the Osiris, get that in Deathwalker's hands, and not like Renegades steal that away from them.
I think Jingwei is a smart first pick with how safe it is for Vote.
There it
He
is.
had like no real pressure he had to worry about, even being able to survive the technical 1v2. Considering how much action there is in the solo lane, mid lane, you want to be able to be as safe as possible. None better than Jingwei.
And Vote's positioning wasn't always perfect. There was that fight by the Gold Fury where he was able to make it out of there using the ultimate. He was kind of like just behind it, close to their own red buff, and just barely gets the airstrike off in time. That's something that just about only Jingwei can do from the Hunter roll.
I think that actually caught Cherryo off guard because he thought that Cherryo or that the Jingwei was out from Vote, so he kind of like hesitated to go back in. He missed a little bit of a basic attack. Should have been a kill actually.
Was dropped a little bit then by Renegades, a chance to punish him. So I get why Vote's going back to this, because it can be tough, even for someone as good as Cherryo, to decide when you can afford to commit onto the Jingwei, because she can get out so often, and when she does, you're left holding an empty bag now. Right now, what do we do? I have nothing left for the rest of the fight. So I get why it's being prioritized here.
Renegades last game around went for the Terra and the Chronos. They're thinking about what they want to lock in. They don't necessarily... They might not pick the Terra this time around with how good of a game Fafnir was for them. They might lock in the Fafnir for themselves and a Chronos, still allowing flexibility for them to have that auto attack composition.
That's right. I wonder if they will prioritize the Fafnir here early on, because that was the key difference, I think, between the two comps, that the Knights are the ones who secured it. But it'll be Osiris and Terra, so they're comfortable giving it up again. And the Knights were willing to prioritize Fafnir right here in this slot last time. So I can't think of a reason why they wouldn't do it again, considering they both like it.
Fafnir Chronos, instant lock-in,
No reason not to.
hesitation. Yeah. PK should go for this immediately without even thinking, honestly. But for Deathwalker not having the Osiris, they might be considering potentially a King Arthur, unless they want to go for a more team fighting based composition. He always has Guan Yu in his back pocket, but
Yeah.
I want them, PK, to have that double attack composition between the Fafnir, Chronos, Jingwei, and allow Deathwalker more of a late game focus.
Yeah, I don't know why Bologna wouldn't be able to fit into that same role for this team too, as they are going to grab the Soul here this time. I mean, it's what Zyrhoes got it done with last time that worked so well for him. It does mean they could give this Chronos right back over to Dardez if he wants it, though, which could certainly be scary. But I mean, after winning in, what, 23, 24 minutes, it's hard not to go back to that same thing.
I don't think it was the Soul that enabled PK to get that early victory. And then the reason why I wanted to see Chronos there is because you're getting attack speed off of your Accelerate, as opposed to a Soul that's getting attack speed through your passive by generating the heat. So it's just a lot more on demand to get that attack speed through the Chronos as opposed to the Soul. But like you said, more comfort, I guess, for Zyrhoes, even though he does like Chronos quite often.
He does play a little. I would think Chronos a little bit more when I think of him, and Chronos does kind of give you some late game insurance a little bit more than Soul, I think, just because of the way that his passive works. Though they're both plenty potent there, so wouldn't be surprised as Chronos comes in. They hovered the Aphrodite for a moment, but that's not the way Renegades are going. I wonder, though, if that might sit in the Knights' head. Is this Afro something they might still consider picking up and maybe give this Chronos down to Funballer?
It should be going to Funballer. I want to see him there to try to really bully out Vote on the Jingwei. Even though she could back, there's a lot of kill potential once Chronos does get a little bit of attack speed and power there. Interesting to see this Uller ban coming out of PK. Knowing it's Dardez and Funballer, you could definitely flex the Uller on top of the Chronos.
I think so too, and this is something they banned last time, so clearly a pick they're worried about not giving it up. Bellona banned away by Renegades, and I think this is smart. In a world where they can't get Osiris, Bellona still fits the bill of synergizing well with the attack speed while being able to harass the backline and even Scourge to disarm. I was thinking this could be a strong pick, and they're taking the Mercury out. This is great adjustments from Renegades. They're not letting them have either of those strong picks.
If you're looking for another warrior that can basic attack, it's got to be the Erlong Shen.
He can do it,
so
yeah.
maybe Renegades are going to lean on that for Cherryo in the jungle role, knowing that they already have the 2 out of the 3 frontliners between Osiris and Terra. But it doesn't really feel like a Cherryo god when I see Erlong Shen. I'm thinking more like, the Najas, the Hunbats banned away yet again, compared to game number 1, really respecting Cherryo.
Well, that's why this Kumbhakarna is a good thing to hover here for Renegades. This lets them fight into that attack speed just a little bit and provides a ton of control. The only question is, if they have Terra and Osiris, where would Kumbha go in that situation?
It would probably be like Kumbha solo Osiris jungle would be my best guess, but instead sticking to his roots is Cherryo, known for his Hunbats and Naja.
That's right. Go ahead and give him a comfort pick. At this point, that would then also X out the Kumbhakarna. I'd imagine they're going to need something to go either to Funballer or to Dardez, depending on where they want this Chronos to go. Remember, they gave it to Dardez last game, so I'm leaning towards them running that back again and picking up something else here for vote in that matchup.
I want to see a Medusa from Renegades.
That could be good,
A lot of single target damage and CC, I think, between Chronos and Naja. You need some sort of follow-up damage from once Naja lands from the Windfire wheels. Medusa could be one way to do it. You could even run the Cupid. Funballer's played that from time to time.
Not a bad idea, and could potentially cut off a few of these leaps. Fafnir could potentially get really punished if that big Cupid cripple field comes down from the Fields of Love, so I like that one too there, Tony.
Or even just play Poseidon. I know Funballer's played Poseidon in that dual lane before. Chronos and Poseidon, Kraken waiting for whoever lands from Naja. That could be one way Renegades gets the job done.
Looks like Deathwalker's considering the Camazotz. Remember, he's the one that's got to make a big-time adjustment because he doesn't have the Bellona or the Osiris picks he's been leaning on lately. Though, yeah, adapting had plenty of options. No surprise that he's going to go back towards this Arachne pick that he's played a lot of. Skipped out boots almost entirely when he plays this. Just gets into the Katana tree and builds movement speed to hunt you down.
I'm a little worried, though, for PK. Like, look at their CC setup. Like, where is it really coming from, right? Like, Fafnir stuns from a distance.
A lot of Fafnir.
Soul slows from a distance, and that's kind of it. I guess you can look for persistent gust from Jing, but then you're not going to have it for yourself to kind of amplify yourself to get that steroid ability. So I'm a little worried for PK if they don't find those initial picks.
Well, my instincts and the part of me that knows SMITE says that this should be a Ra for Dardez in the middle lane, and then Chronos for Funballer.
You would think.
But the part of me that knows it's Renegades says it might not be just that simple. This could still be a Ra for Funballer and potentially a Chronos in the middle lane. I'm just saying, don't count that out there.
If Renegades want a lot of early action and a lot of damage, they're probably going to stick the Chronos in mid lane and allow a farm fest up against the Jing. So like you said before, who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, I would absolutely not count that one out, and this Ra is one that could go over there and farm up and then rotate over a good bit ahead. Where is all these picks going? I am absolutely ready to find out. Let's just go ahead and get to the action. PK and Renegades.
Well, we got a little bit before the action, and I'm very excited because we get to see another Naja. But we get to see Naja against a relatively squishy lineup, which is interesting. The Arachne, though, scares the hell out of me.
Not ideal target, so to say, for a Naja necessarily. Soul's going to have the Disapparate and everybody else on Pittsburgh Knights some form of CC immunity on their ultimates. And when it comes to land settings, that zero ping really starts to take effect. So curious to see how Cherryo plans on pulling this one off, but I am excited to see Funballer back on or not necessarily traditional carry. I don't really know what's going on here, but back on a hyper carry.
I feel you on that. You hear me giggling a little bit as you see standard play coming out from Cherryo and adapting. I'm just here. Take my picture. Let me play the game. Both junglers all about their business. Adapting here, getting some setup early on the spider.
Deathwalker's going for the red buff invade? No, he's going to walk his way back over to Soul Lane. I thought for a second that Pittsburgh Knights were trying to pull out something spicy, but turns out they're just trying to ensure, I think, that there weren't any invade starts from the Renegades.
Yeah, just a little bit of early game protection there coming out from the rotation of the Batman. Renegades going with the dual lane is on the short side thing now. So is Pittsburgh Knights, but not starting in lane. They're going to collapse on the opposition, it looks like, where Vote starts at the buff because of the spider. Nope, no collapse, just straight to the blue buff here. Renegades will push on the solo side, easy peasy. Vote will start at the purple buff because of the Arachne assist as well. So all things going the way they should. No invades, no oddities, and no weird stuff.
Well, it is a little weird from adapting that he would go straight from speed to red, but I think it's an exclusive strategy for Arachne because adapting made or laid spiders on that purple buff, so
Right.
he still gets credit for the experience off that buff camp. So dropping red allows him at level 2 and also maintain all of the buffs in Pittsburgh Knights' favor. Renegades without any invade opportunities so far.
Zyrhoes might not be able to pick up that red buff.
He
He's
might not be interested in it.
Yeah, nobody picks up the first red here.
Charging
That's it.
defenses.
Just looking for the pure farm. Not that big of a deal to drop it, I guess.
It's not a big deal to drop it. I think Zyrhoes didn't realize right away.
Sure.
And just was taking a little bit longer to clear the wave than expected. So a little unfortunate, but it's not like it hurts him drastically, levels 1 through 3, to not have that red buff.
It's percentage based, so if you don't have a lot of power, it's going to do a little bit less. So obviously, you know, it works. You want it. Dardez will have better push than Zyrhoes, but it is a small loss for Pittsburgh for sure.
Not a significant amount for Zyrhoes to really be upset about it, so to say. 3-man grouping, though, from Pittsburgh Knights. EmilZy actually not going to stick around in that solo lane as long as we have seen some supports kind of stray their way over to that solo side of the map. I think both teams maybe a little bit more focused around this mid lane and controlling the mid harpies.
Yeah, this has been a focus from both of these teams in game number 1 for sure. You know, it's funny you said something about being upset, and Renegades, they did not look too happy after that last one. Cherryo, you saw him at the end of the game, just kind of took his headset off and his glasses. He knew what happened.
Well, it's just such a fast collapse.
It was.
You expect to get... It's fine when you die. It's not the end of the world when you die. But you don't expect a game to end in 3.5, 4 minutes immediately after the fact. But that's what the Pittsburgh Knights do. That's what these top-end teams do, I should clarify. Because I don't think that this is exclusive to the Pittsburgh Knights by any means. I think that if that were Dignitas, we would have probably seen the exact same results there.
That's the big difference between like top teams and good teams is the window of opportunity. Sometimes if you just crack open the window for a little bit of air, teams like Pittsburgh Knights are going to slip right through there. They don't need this giant window.
It was just the staggering of the death timers that became problematic for Renegades, and then when they tried to make the defense on the T2 tower, it was just too much pressure from Pittsburgh Knights by then with that fire giant on their side, and it just became a mess, honestly. And I think now Renegades probably going to be a little bit more hesitant, if anything, on trying to pull the trigger for those duo side ganks.
Which is tough, in all honesty. I mean, you don't want a game like that to affect you too hard. When you lose a game like that, right, you want to be able to say, all right, well, we made that mistake and go back and fix it. But at the same time, you don't want that game to deter you from the playstyle that has won you 3 matches already, right? So Renegades have to stay aggressive, but they have to balance that aggression with some rationality.
A life lesson for sure for Cherryo on trying to gank Jing Wei. I think that it's not so surprising for us because we've seen it happen so many times before in the past where teams will try to gank a duo lane and it'll have a Jing Wei and that Jing Wei will live forever or just get out entirely on their own accord. And it can be a frustrating experience for sure, but I think it's really just a subtle reminder to Cherryo on what type of execution you have to constantly bring to the playing field.
Because that looked like when he jumped over there with the Kali and just missed the ultimate, that's, you know, that's just an oops. That's just an oops. He's a better player than that. He can hit the ult. He can do that. We've seen it a number of times, blah, blah, blah. You leave that engagement just going, I'm a better player. I know that. Your coach doesn't need to tell you nothing. That's the worst, man. That is the worst feeling, especially how simple. Like we broke down the game. It was just so simple. It really was. Cherryo died and Renegades died, and then Pittsburgh Knights got everything off of that. You don't need to watch the VOD, you know? Like, Slaney doesn't need to come in here, you know, and coach you out. You just go, I died and they won. That sucks. Like, that is the worst feeling that you can get, I think. So that's really where my mind is at watching this game number 2 is Renegades, Cherryo is an emotional. Can he shake it? I know that's like, you know, getting into the armchair psychology here, but at the end of the day, and a large part of the game is mental. You can't go for those ganks if you're not feeling confident.
Well, it'll be up to the Renegades to try and gas their boy back up into... I think Cherryo's fine, honestly. Those are the types of matches, though, where if you're in a best-of-5 set, you don't feel as awful about it because you still have 4 other possible opportunities to turn things around. I think that one is a loss that the Renegades can definitely look to brush off, no problem.
Yeah.
But it is a friendly reminder to the Renegades at the same time that, hey, we can't afford to make mistakes like that.
That's absolutely the other side of the coin. Either you sit there like me after I lose my rank game for my team and I go, well, report me. I'm the worst. I won't queue up for a week. Please tell all my friends, right? Or the other side is, yeah, it's a best of 5. Just forget about it. Nika getting jumped on. Will find the root. I like that play. If Nika all out jumps under the tower, Adapting might be able to catch up to him. But because he lands the root, he gets that little bit of distance, and that's enough to keep Pittsburgh Knights away from the successful gank.
Cherryo gonna get a decent ring bounce off onto Adapting from that Totem of Coup. Actually slide that totem back to the Renegades. Looked like Pittsburgh Knights were just about to finish securing it. And so far, so good for both sides. That is up until Vote decides to pay a visit to Dardez. Tempted to steal the red buff, but little use against the Ra. Good confirmed by Dardez will ensure that his buff is maintained. But EmilZy could try to say otherwise on this left side mid-Harpies.
Dardez runs away from the stun. Jumped on by EmilZy. Adapting here as well. The ultimate used. Looking for slow. Won't happen. Funball on the left side. Target again. Won't happen. Nice job from the Renegades to get away from the Spider. The ultimate on cooldown now. Cherryo looking for Zyrhoes. Lined up with the ultimate. That's good damage, but not enough to confirm the kill just yet. EmilZy transformation. Stunned out again. To the sky. 1, 2, 3. Damage on the bottom. Not available. And the support gets away.
Vote's gonna make sure to rotate into the mid lane. Nice sash from Cherryo's gonna slow him down and get the purification beads in the process. Dart is still pushing forward, but that Celestial Beam just off the mark, as is Funballer's follow-up. This could be an opportunity, though, for the Renegades to keep trying to push for this Team 1 tower.
They've sent a couple of players home. Funball's gonna chase down Zyrhoes. Adapting still doesn't have the ultimate. DW dies off camera to the 1v1. Mid lane tower in trouble. Folks, this is only 8 minutes. And that's what I was gonna bring up. I thought Renegades might even kind of lose out because of it, Taco. Cherryo nails everything there. They nail every combo, but the numbers, it's too early in Mobile World. There just isn't enough damage. But that is a scary foreshadowing of how these team fights could go for the Renegades.
Both EmilZy and Zyrhoes, I think, kind of just shouting out their life RNG right now that Dardez doesn't have the damage quite yet. And a nice right mid Harpy steal from Dardez, just tossing out these raw snipes.
That's how you got to do it. Let it fly.
Anytime it's up, it's such a low cooldown, you might as well just go for it. And I love the fact that he chose to ult when Cherryo sashed.
Yeah, that was not waiting for the ultimate from the Najah. Sash is good enough. Again, talking about how small the windows are. You see lesser players, they see the sash, they need to wait for the ultimate setup. Great players. Dardez, you're in the Pro League now. You got to be able to make that play off the sash. Dardez trusts Cherryo not only is going to hit it, but the call that the beads aren't there. Bang, bang, bang. Real nice play from Renegades. Again, give them another item. We see 3 players dead.
Something that we aren't giving enough justice, though, is Nika for that solo kill onto Deathwalker in the opposite, or in the solo lane. It's just... everybody's fighting in mid, all eyes are on that mid lane, and then Nika's just casually soloing Deathwalker off to the side. And it was actually, could not have been better time from Nika. He knew that he had plenty of time. He saw where everybody was at on the map, so the fact that he just went all in and chose to fully aggress into Deathwalker, I think it's going to open up the map pretty nicely for Renegades now.
That's a big deal. Anytime your solo laner gets the solo kill, or even your carry, it's a vote of confidence. You know, you sit there and you go, all right, well, we can trust that guy to do it by himself. iRaffer gets stunned up. EmilZy, what are you doing? No play potential there. Oh, well.
What is EmilZy's win-loss record to iRaffer?
Interesting question. Definitely don't know it off the top.
I don't have it off the top of my head either, but I'm fairly certain iRaffer's up against EmilZy. As far as like the little, you know, if we're really trying to get specific
Okay.
in the downtime and talk about the player feuds.
Well, last year when they made the trade, they wound up even, right? Or no, EmilZy actually wound up with more wins than iRaffer in that matchup for sure.
No, I think iRaffer, Obey would only ever beat Energy in that circumstance, though. That was the only team Obey was beating, was Energy. And then in the end, I think Energy finally takes a set off of Obey.
Yes.
Sometime near Worlds, but that was the first time in forever.
Coming into Season 6, it's certainly an interesting one because I think iRaffer has a much better team around him. I think this is just a much better scenario for both players. I think it's kind of crazy to say this, Taco. I think these rosters are kind of even.
I'm being nitpicky for sure, just because, I mean, let's be realistic here. These teams are both still definitely gearing more towards that mid to late game ramp up period. So
For sure.
they're trying to bide their time and seize the moments where they can. But I always find it, I guess, a little bit fun. Oh, Zyrhoes. Wise use of those purification beads off of Cherryo's sash. Dardez was already in position and drops the Raw Snipe, but won't be able to connect because of Zyrhoes cleansing that stun. But it's interesting to me, though, that Renegades are sort of conditioning Zyrhoes into thinking that he needs to use his beads if Cherryo drops the sash and Dardez is nearby.
Mm-hmm. Got to be able to just team up immediately looking for that one. And so if you're not ready, it's not going to be ready.
But what happens when Cherryo chooses to use the sash, and because Zyrhoes has been getting Raw Sniped all game immediately after, he drops the beads, but there's no Raw Snipe to follow that up. I think that it's an interesting possible outplay opportunity, but this is where competitive SMITE can really become more of a mental game.
It's you're conditioning your opposition. If you have to, because a lot of times you'll see players not beats the sash because they're going to beats the ultimate. But now you're trained to beat the sash because the Raw Snipe's going to come off the sash. Well, now I'm going to sash you. You don't know that Raw's not here. You're going to burn the beads. It's just, you don't know what's happening. Renegades have conditioned Zyrhoes to be afraid of that sash. It's, like you said, that mental aspect, that conditioning. It's real smart. And we see that from time to time, and I love that. I think that's real effective. And so Renegades trying to make that work. 13 in, still just one kill. Renegades you might be able to drive that number up, though. 3v2 here. 4v2. Renegades stacked.
A nice pincer attempt from the Renegades, but the wall placement out of iRaffer just not quite it. And Zyrhoes and EmilZy. Well, EmilZy's got the leap, so he was safe, I think, for the most part in that position. But Zyrhoes almost got trapped, makes it out with the disapparate recognition in time. And I think Dardez was his real heads-up moment that he could be in some trouble, where Zyrhoes decides to just abandon the right mid-harpies entirely. But I want to see Renegades maybe try and psych out Zyrhoes the next time they look for a Gold Fury, because neither team has really made a serious attempt towards this objective. And I definitely think both of these teams could blow up the Gold Fury in a matter of seconds.
I think Dardez has a little bit more on the objective secure side, but as far as just the raw DPS, you're absolutely right. I mean, you're looking at Fafnir just burn it down with Soul and Vote. Deathwalker getting burned down by Nika. Died once before, and he's going to die again. The thorny justice from Nika, putting Deathwalker in the ground. Incredible. I mean, DW is the star solo laner for a long time, and Nika's kind of a newcomer.
But now Nika has an opportunity to rotate if he so desires. No, instead Adapting's going to be sent over to that solo lane, but Zyrhoes is in trouble, left all by his own inside of the mid lane. Already expended the Disapparate. Dardez going to get up close and personal, make sure that Celestial Beam can't be off the mark this time around. And now a possible T1 tower for Renegades. No, a guaranteed T1 tower instead.
And see, that's the difference between 8 minutes and 14 minutes right there, is that they just didn't have the numbers earlier on. Now they absolutely do. Funball walking away here. That's kind of nuts.
Nika's kind of an alpha.
I mean, he's certainly making a statement for it. Like I said, Deathwalker is the guy that, like, He was the solo laner last year. Final K's been making some noise, but he's still Deathwalker. Nika, on the other hand, nowhere near the amount of superlatives that DW has, and he's soloed him not just once, but twice.
I might be more excited than ever now to see this Nika versus Final K match. And when's the rival set going to take place? I mean, that is something that I never thought would be taking place so soon between these two teams, but Deathwalker has just been wholeheartedly soloed.
Yeah.
In this
Twice.
matchup.
Twice.
All that sustained on the Camazotz, but this could be really problematic for Pittsburgh Knights if someone doesn't help out Deathwalker soon enough, because the whole purpose of this Camazotz, I think, is to exploit Renegade's backline. They are a fairly squishy team outside of iRaffer and Nika, and it's kind of up to Deathwalker, I think, to force out Funballer's ultimate more often than not in team fighting engagements. But when he can't even survive against Nika's pressure, I just can't even imagine what Nika's going to do to the Pittsburgh Knights in a team fighting environment.
It's a 2-level lead. Raffer respects Pittsburgh as they go for the objective on the right side. Cherryo with the zone, and Renegades go fine. Pyromancer belongs to you. We'll get the Gold Fury. And a bigger win there for Renegades, sitting pretty about 2,000 gold up. Pittsburgh now looking to respond. They're going to take down Raffer pretty easily. Nice burst damage out of adapting. Tier 1 tower on Renegades' side will fall down. Pittsburgh not done. Looking at a Tier 2. And Vote taking the 1v1.
A little bit of revenge there for Zyrhoes, although he won't get credited for the kill. That'll be all adapting. Funballer's got to be careful, though. Trying to take this boxing Cherryo Vote has no idea that adapting's right behind him.
Surprise! Funball gonna rewind, looking for the stun. Won't have to use it. Adapting backs off. Cherryo brings Zyrhoes to the sky. Disapparates good. And now the Batman trying to do what he can against Cherryo. Level 15. Cherryo falls down. Zyrhoes with the last hit. Big damage out of Camazotz. But here's that Nika. You were talking about it. What can they do? 3 versus 1. Even with Thorns up, Nika still going to fall down. 1 versus 1, no problem. 1 versus 2, probably even good. 1 versus 3, it gets scary. Pittsburgh Knights bring the 4th player over, and Nika does fall down. But it took 4 players.
But that's the type of response that Pittsburgh Knights needed against the Renegades to kind of slow down what lead Nika was starting to develop. He has a full item and a half over Deathwalker currently, and it's probably the worst case scenario that Renegades end up losing their soul laner there. I think Nika should have probably just let Zyrhoes go at that point and learn when to back off. When you have a lead that massive, why sacrifice any potential to slow that down?
It's also the other side of things where that was, I talk a lot about getting stops, right? Sequences are how this game is played. Fire Giant started here. And that was a very important sequence for Pittsburgh Knights. If Renegades get that and keep going, the game spirals out of control. They can spiral out of control here. Cherryo looks for the sash instead of the ring. The Fire Giant goes the way of Pittsburgh Knights, and they're going to run away out of here. 18 minutes, an early Fire Giant, and it belongs to PK.
This is starting to bear a little bit too many similarities to the last game, Tom, because keep in mind, Pittsburgh Knights got that first Fire Giant of the last game right around this 18, 20-minute segment, and then they ended the game shortly after that with about 2 to 3 minutes after the 20-minute mark.
This is a very different scenario, though, because, again, talking about, like, different back and forths and sequences, Renegades had their fun. Pittsburgh Knights answered back. Renegades here, it's very important. It's a tie game, Fire Giant. Renegades have to fight. Maybe over in Tier 1, not where you're going to look for it, but this is not where I want to see Renegades go. They got fire, sit back and let them take all the towers. No. This is a team fight you absolutely can take. And with Pittsburgh Knights walking up, I would like to see them kind of take it.
It'll be close for sure as Pittsburgh Knights continue to push up the duo side. All 5 members from Renegades looking to play defense, and rightfully so. I think that this is a pretty reasonable place to take a stance if you're the Renegades right now.
Yeah.
They got to be careful, though. I think it's all about preventing Deathwalker or adapting from just blowing up Funballer or Cherryo in the backside.
I agree. They've got long-range poke with the ring bounce and healing options from the Solar Blessing. So a couple of options here for Renegades to kind of turtle. Real easy for them to do so. You can toss out some damage from Dardez as well. So if you're just going to sit on the tower and stare at each other, I think Renegades kind of comes up in the clutch.
Well, that's why Adapting's been sent to the mid lane now to provide a little bit of split push opportunity. That's going to draw over Nika to look to try and play defense. So Renegades not trying to give up any of these T2 towers. They've even got an Emperor's armor.
There's Frenzy. There's the ultimate out of Dardez. Gonna land on the back line. People still healthy. Funball certainly feeling it. But everybody on Pittsburgh in the green. Adapting, dealing with Nika in the wings. Again, another push from Pittsburgh Knights. But again, this is what Renegades should be doing. I love this defensive play, and they're doing well. No full initiation just yet. Triple stun from Renegades. No capitalization.
Just not enough time to attack those T2 towers.
Walking out of here is kind of scary. The Renegades are going to go for it. iRaffer pops the ultimate as Cherryo wins the fight between the Arachne. No kill, but Arachne has to leave. iRaffer's going to isolate EmilZy, who pops up into the ultimate, jumping away. Cherryo's not here, and if he gets here, a ring bounce can confirm the team fight.
Funballer trying to do what he can to catch up. Another Raw Snipe going to come out from Dardez. Does a decent chunk against EmilZy, and finally Cherryo's going to be able to bring him down.
Beautiful ring bounce announces that everyone gonna die. Double un for Funball. Adapting is here, trying to Arachne players down. He's certainly healthy. The Renegades aren't. Heals are good, but 3 players take a seat, all for exchange of Cherryo in the jungle. Renegades defend against the Fire Giant at a tier 2. They respond and take a tier 1.
The only person with anti-heal, though, is Adapting. He's got a Toxic Blade, but that's single target damage. Other than that, it's no wonder Renegades are able to be so comfortable sitting underneath their T2 tower, because their out-of-combat healing is not being prevented in the slightest.
We're really just not seeing it. You can see the heal charts there. 15,000 healing coming out from Dardez. And a lot of that is just, all right, they tried to push into us on the tower, we sat and healed. All right, they tried to push into the tower, we sat and healed. Gold Fury goes the direction of Renegades as well. Lead change. The Renegades lead by 2,000 gold. Give or take, probably more like 1,000 after that one. Easy peasy. Tie game here, folks. Fire Giant neutralized. And we're back to parity.
As long as there isn't any real anti-heal options for Pittsburgh Knights, I don't really see it being feasible for them to try and siege into Renegades. They do have a Curse Donk. I will say that's definitely a smart pickup from Deathwalker. He even rushed the upgrade for it, so it's not like it's base level Curse Donk. It's definitely the full upgrade version where it will be worse for Renegades because of the additional damage they'll be taking. 20%.
It's huge.
That is a lot of boosted damage to take. And even with that having been popped, Renegades were actually the ones giving chase against Pittsburgh Knights.
Yep. We saw both the Frenzy and the Ankh. Renegades. Okay. Tie game. Fire Giant in the opposition. Renegades. Okay.
It's amazing how much Earthen Fury can nullify.
Really, for real. iRaffer. And iRaffer, who had a phenomenal set yesterday, rather. Phenomenal set. Fantastic setup for iRaffer here, who, again, big part of what allows this Renegades team to be successful, I think, is iRaffer. He's a troll. We saw Finch's battle sounds. iRaffer just messing with Finch. But I got to admit, it's fun to mess with Finch.
That might be a Tom Battinger special, even, some would say.
You could say that. I do tend to funch with Finch.
See, I mess with Finch in other ways. I mess with Finch in the sense he can't ever tell if I'm listening.
That's just you in general, Taco. Renegades and Pittsburgh Knights fighting around the Fire Giant. Don't hit me. We'll see where everybody's going to wind up here. EmilZy walking out of the stun there.
The casual don't hit me.
That's that was what EmilZy was saying, I swear. Another dodge here from Deathwalker.
But look at iRaffer. He just full heals the entire time from Dardez. Deathwalker could actually be in a little bit of trouble here if he's not careful, but he is getting some decent poke against iRaffer now. And the Divine Ruin is online as well for Zyrhoes.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Divine Ruin's there. You want to talk about conditioning? Deathwalker's there by himself, just, bat poking iRaffer. Renegades can't go in on that because we've seen Pittsburgh Knights time and time again Deathwalker dangles himself out there. Somebody tries to jump on him, and then Adapting blinks in, and there's a frenzy popped. And 2 people are dead on your team, so you learn not to jump on Deathwalker. He does what iRaffer does. You always think he's at a position doing the wrong thing. You try to punish, and then the team is there on an instant call. Deathwalker's done that time and time again. So even though DW was kind of alone there, he only had one other teammate near him. Renegades still didn't want to engage because they're just used to Pittsburgh Knights being closer.
I am still surprised that the Pittsburgh Knights weren't able to at least confirm that dual side T2 tower when they're the ones that had the Emperor's armor.
It was nuts. It was a big play. Adapting here, making a big play against Dardez, likely to get the kill. Can't. Nice dodge and weave. The ultimate will confirm it. Adapting barely getting out of there, 10% HP. Here comes Cherryo to confirm. Adapting with the shell and the wiggles. But Cherryo's here to confirm it. 1 for 1 so far as the mid lane falls to the jungler. And there's the frenzy on the side of Pittsburgh Knights. Renegades respond with an ultimate out of iRaffer, and Nika will fall down. Big deal there. With the Osiris gone, Pittsburgh Knights feel comfortable. They'll push up looking for the tower.
Funballer also had to use the Aegis to get away from Vote, not trying to get crit down, but iRaffer is going to get rooted in place thanks to EmilZy
Nice
and
play.
just gobbled up by Zyrhoes. Pittsburgh Knights could have possibly pushed for a mid-Phoenix, but instead they're going to turn their attention towards this enhanced fire giant. And again, Dardez gets picked. Renegades try to rotate in to help out, but they have to go too deep. EmilZy's shell timer on Adapting, forcing Cherryo to take that extra little step, just separated the Renegades too much.
Last time it was Cherryo, this time it's Dardez. If you're rooting for Renegades, hopefully this one doesn't go as quickly as the last one did. They're waiting for Adapting. Adapting will spawn. Zyrhoes will kill it. Everybody gets fire giant. 27 on the clock, 7 all as far as the kills are concerned. 2,000 gold separate our teams, and Pittsburgh Knights on the offense.
And another reason why Pittsburgh Knights are able to pull that enhanced fire giant so low and hold it, I mean, there's the picks, but normally we see teams contest. It's just that Vote is burning these objectives because he's getting to build crit every game.
Yep, and we've been looking at crit builds for a while, and you can see Nika has brought out Thorns and Nemean Lion. Doesn't seem to phase Vote whatsoever. and like you said, Taco, I mean, the ability to just destroy these objectives with those crit builds is really the big point of the Hunter.
The problem for Nika is that Vote's not the one hitting him anymore. It's all Zyrhoes. If you're going to stack physical damage or physical defenses, then you have to deal with the soul as a repercussion of that. And Zyrhoes is having an absolute field day against this Osiris because outside of the Pestilence, all he really has is health.
Very true. You do see the mid-Guardian mail here that will slow down the basic attacks from Zyrhoes. If Raffer's around, the Witchblade will help as well. Which again, by the way, shout-outs to Renegades. I got the Witchblade, I got the mid-Guardian mail. I'm happy. Things are good.
They're doing everything right, except
it's still
positioning
not enough
on their carries.
Exactly. Like, it's still not enough. Really rough there for Dardez to get picked. Pittsburgh Knights pick up the left side tower. 5,000 gold above Renegades. Left side Phoenix is the target.
Still a pretty good spot to be in, though, if you're Renegades. Base defense is definitely where this composition can begin to shine.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to hit Dardez with the Divine Ruin procs underneath the T2 tower where you have ways to get behind him. It's another thing entirely to try and do those same type of effects when he's underneath the Phoenix.
Long range on the one, longer range on the ultimate as well for the mid lane mage on the side of Renegades. Cherryo with the poke. Oof, look at that.
Slowly but surely, Pittsburgh Knights, their front line's getting whittled away.
And don't forget, I mean, that poke, the ring toss also comes with a Brawler's Beat Stick attached. So, Deathwalker gonna have problems there. Mid lane, the 2v2 will turn into a scrum, as EmilZy's gonna join Funballer as he shifts over. That said, Adapting still on the bird, trying to isolate the spider, get him off there. Here comes the minions. And the mid lane Phoenix will survive, just barely though. Renegades really have to fight this.
Ooh, Dardez way off the mark though with that last raw snipe. And Renegades still holding on to their mid lane Firebird, but Pittsburgh Knights at least know that big wombo combo of the Najah and the Ra not gonna really be much of a threat. Cherryo lost that Windfire and Wheels cooldown as well, thanks to Adapting. And that was actually a pretty smart play out of Pittsburgh Knights because Adapting and Deathwalker both have enough escape potential that it's feasible for them to try and siege that Phoenix.
Very true. Just try and look and see if you can knock the door down. Left side is where Pittsburgh Knights are going to try and brute force it. Vote knocked down a half, but Funball kind of the same thing. No push. EmilZy here. Mid lane bird, already toasted. Taken care of by the jungler. Renegades on the defensive and not looking clean here. Great job there from Adapting.
All that matters is that the base has been breached right now, so all Pittsburgh Knights need are a couple of good picks, and they might be able to bring down the Renegades for a 2-0 lead in this set.
Gotta watch out, man. EmilZy leading the charge. iRaffer stunned out. There's the ring toss. iRaffer is going to be able to pop Vote thanks to the ultimate. And now Pittsburgh Knights, despite the frenzy, are facing the 4v5. Cherryo takes one to the sky. Was it a squishy? Was it a squishy? Yes, it was. Dardez finishes off Zyrhoes. And it's Renegades on the rampage. Fantastic defense on their Phoenix. They keep the left side alive. And now they're pushing forward. Where do they go from here?
It's crazy what can happen when Dardez lands the snipe.
Yeah,
that
man.
first connection onto Vote that just 0 to 80'd him. I can't say 100 because it didn't kill Vote, but it did do about 80% of that HP bar, and that's all it takes.
You hear us talk a lot about high execution compositions and what that means. Right here, this is a medium execution composition. When Cherryo goes up, the Ra has to hit the snipe. If it doesn't, well, you lose the fight like we saw. If it does, you win the fight like we saw. Renegades looking to respond to the mid lane Phoenix by taking a mid lane Phoenix. And they'll retreat right after that. Nika caught up, Renegades respond. Deathwalker has to bounce on back. And once again, Doug, can we see the graphs? Because it's a tie game.
It is completely tied. Pretty much a coin flip away from a victory for either
Yeah.
side at this stage. And with that enhanced Fire Giant having just respawned, Renegades got to be careful. Unless it's their intent to try and play things off of base defense, because they've had really strong base defenses so far and have gotten more, if not just as much as Pittsburgh Knights off of every single one of these siege attempts out of the Knights.
They really have. And I'm looking at the Ra. The Ra has been really effective. Again, when it's you notice when Dardez is doing the job and when he's not. That's a compliment, right?
He just needs to be consistent. That's
Exactly.
all it takes.
Yep.
As long as he's hitting that raw snipe onto at least 1, 2 or more individuals ideally, but
Yeah.
I completely understand why that's not always going to be the case, especially in this high-level play environment where Pittsburgh Knights they're doing a great job from their back line at staying spread out enough that no more than one person should be getting hit by these beams.
Defenses.
Pittsburgh Knights starting the Fire Giant, but I'm not fooled. They're looking for the fight. There's the jump in. Deathwalker going to be stunned out. Adapting all the way in. Loses half of his life bar. iRaffer is going to lose his whole life bar. Great stun. And the Hunter finishes things off.
But look at how low Zyrhoes is, and he's on the retreat. So is Vote. Airstrike going to be utilized just to try and get away. Adapting still behind everybody. Renegades forgot that the Spider could be coming back around.
Adapting just waiting for his cooldown to come up. The 2-1 is up, and Funball will retreat. Dardez, Cherryo has Adapting, and Dardez has Adapting. The double kill for the mid lane monster. Zyrhoes on the retreat as well. Nika finds the slow. Renegades looking to still push. Still push. All right, they're going to retreat here.
They gotta retreat here. I don't think there's much more they can really get out of this one, especially now with EmilZy having that Emperor's armor. Actually coming in clutch a little bit there, I think. Kind of dissuaded Nika from wanting to dive any deeper. Also the fact that he got crit by Vote for 200 something, almost 300 damage. That's usually a good sign of it might be time to back off now.
It's funny, man. iRaffer used to be the only person that bought this item, the Emperor's armor. And now it's EmilZy that's buying it. Funny how that works. Renegades have the Fire Giant down to 1/3 of HP. Vote's being tussled with by Nika. Funball Dardez still on the objective. Zyrhoes has shown up. This is going to be a coin flip. Renegades trying to leash it. Finally do. There's the rewind from Funball. The fight completely reset.
A lot expended there from the Renegades, and Zyrhoes going to lose both of his relics as a result, but Cherryo being just a little bit off the mark once that purification beads wore off from Zyrhoes. I think he was down to take Zyrhoes up into the sky. Even if he had the Aegis proc, it just would not have really mattered. But that's going to be a swing and a miss for the Renegades.
This might be the fire giant.
Yeah, they're going back for it.
They might be able to just grab it. Not enough damage. I definitely expected more damage.
It's not like Vote with those crits. This enhanced fire giant is not easy to bring down. You notice the difference between an attack speed, pen-based build, and one with crit.
You really, really do. No full crit coming out from Cherryo either. So a little over a half hour here, and we're all tied up in game number 2.
Cherryo.
You were asking about win rates before. EmilZy versus iRaffer. So EmilZy has won 18 out of those. iRaffer has won 25 lifetime. That's a 58% win rate for iRaffer.
Over EmilZy.
Over EmilZy. When these guys go head to head, it's iRaffer that has won more. I will go out on a limb. Those are the stats, my thought process. EmilZy might have won more important games than iRaffer. When you think about the tenure in the land.
Yeah, but for iRaffer,
2 years.
every single game that he beats against EmilZy is an important game.
That is the most true statement I have ever heard.
And I could bet you it's the exact same feelings for EmilZy.
He might hide it a little better.
Say whatever you want, but there is pride on the line.
He might hide it a little better. iRaffer, on the other hand, he'll just be honest about it. Adapting, blinking on Dardez. The Aegis will keep him at bay for the moment. The slow is good. The shell is strong. Dardez still trying to avoid it, but Deathwalker from the sky takes care of one. No, he takes care of two. A third player is going to die. A fourth player is going to die. The Titan is going to die. That is the game. Just like that, Pittsburgh Knights blow up a tie, and we'll just walk in and close the door.
2 explosive finishes so far for the Pittsburgh Knights, and both of them just coming at such bizarre moments. Nika trying to do what he can, but in the face of an entire Pittsburgh Knights roster, not a chance for the Renegades to bring this one back.
That one, look at EmilZy. EmilZy right there. Zero's laughing. Kenneth. All right, I am going to, I can't read lips, but I know this is how this happened, and you know this is how it happened. Kenneth blinked. Adapting just blinked on them and went, okay. And everybody went, what are you doing? And they collapsed, followed, and that's how it happened.
I think that was Adapting just being a little impatient. He just got tired of not fighting, so he's like, I'm just going to go in here and full commit onto Dardez. Let's see what they do. Follow me up.
I don't even know if that amount of conversation was had. I think the rest of Pittsburgh Knights just looked forward and saw the Arachne. Oh, he's up there now. And they all ran forward. That's just how Kenneth works. That's how Adapting has made a name for himself. Sometimes the Pittsburgh Knights, the jungler, will just go, I want this game to end now, and I'd like to win. And they just choose to do just that.
Well, that was really well played, I think, from Deathwalker at the end as well to follow up on the Camazotz because they got the force shell out of iRaffer, I believe, and they were doing everything in their power to try and protect Dardez that they didn't realize just how much splash damage was happening to everybody else on the side. So all that out of combat healing was just unable to take place because they just got ran at. That's it.
Yeah, great stuff there. Pittsburgh Knights going back to the old school. Adapting used to do it with Epsilon, with all those other teams. He's still doing it now.
The Knights grab a big win here in game number 2. Now they have the Renegades up against the ropes. We haven't seen them against the ropes quite like this just yet. Down 0-2 and up 2-0 if you're on the side of the Knights. And this one was back and forth, right? Starts off Renegades, then Knights are sieging for a while, get the Phoenix, then back to Renegades, and then Knights close it out.
It was difficult for PK to siege into the Raw from Dardez. You saw the multiple fire giants early game that they got. It was just completely halted. Also, the chase down potential from Nika's Osiris was just a little bit too difficult, specifically when Adapting lost a 1v1 against Cherryo in mid lane. That 4-on-4 chase down on the left side of the map where Cherryo came in a little bit faster than Adapting. They won it from there, but then that engage from adapting. The blink plays was just a little bit too much. The last one there at 37-minute mark, and then another one at 26, which really opened the window.
Adapting was critical in this match. You heard them talking about it, our casters, towards the end, about how it kind of felt like Adapting was just tired of being in the game and said, let's go. He moved in and got that fight started off for his team in the best possible way. But remember how all this started? I mean, how did Renegades originally get that lead in the first place? Well, it was Nika just kind of handling Deathwalker in the solo lane. He got 2 solo kills in a row on him.
Yeah, and this play right there, that 26-minute mark tower dive, and then after that kill onto Dardez the first time, it was the rest of Renegades chasing down the Arachne, trying to get the revenge kill. It became a 3-for-1, which allowed the enhanced fire giant from PK.
Yes, that's exactly right. Them running him down eventually were able to grab that kill. So Renegades were able to get up to a good start to start this game off, but couldn't quite hold on to it after a while. Eventually, the Knights were able to start pushing back in. I think I do want to give a lot of that credit over to Adapting for holding on, or to this Fafnir, one of those two. They were able to grab the mid-Phoenix, but got kind of stalled around that left side, couldn't find their way in there. This is starting to like problems for the Renegades.
It definitely is, especially when they had the winning matchup for Nika, getting those 2 solo kills onto Deathwalker. That early start couldn't really transition well in that mid game, but they were still holding on because of the raw from Dardez. Funballer had a good amount of damage on the Chronos, going for a very health-oriented build between the Warlock staff and that winged blade. It was difficult to really pinpoint and lock him down until the very end when Adapting does ultimately blink. And what enabled that blink was actually the Mad Guy's Cloak. It was very calculated. It wasn't because Adapting was bored or wanted the game to end then and there. He knew that he could at least go in, intercept that Funballer time stop, and then continue the pressure from there, allowing Deathwalker to clean up and get 2 important kills. Funballer didn't even have time to rewind.
It really looked like, though, like maybe they'd committed and they weren't quite going to be able to grab him. There was a big shell, I think, in that fight as well for Dardez that very nearly kept him alive. He started to be able to reposition back towards the back end of that fight, but they just could not get him all the way out of there. That pressure was relentless. But the fight that kind of looked like maybe Knights had finally lost. Remember, they were around the FG, and then the Knights pushed up aggressively into the tier 2 tower over there and right and dive in. They at least get that first kill on the iRaffer, but then Renegades push back out against them, and it starts to look like they have a chance. They just could not find a way to get the FG and then start sieging themselves.
That's right. Having the Chronos has a lot of damage against the structures, but very difficult to kill that enhanced fire giant. So all those picks that they got, utilizing the raw sustain to reset the fight, prolong them a little bit longer. The chase down potential with Nika's Osiris was good for some picks, but they couldn't ultimately seal the deal. They only got the middle Phoenix after that re-engage, but couldn't find the Titan.
And now Renegades are in a tough spot because they've lost 2 different types of matches, right? The very first match was this very fast, almost snowball-y affair from the Knights. This match was one where they were out in front for a while, then they held on, got back to relevancy, and still couldn't close that game out. And now that Knights have shown them they can beat them in both kinds of games, the options for Renegades are really starting to shrink. I mean, they might be a bit cornered.
They just have to be careful about splitting up too much, because that first blink at 26-minute mark from Adapting was because Cherryo was split pushing that dual lane by himself, being spotted out by their own minions. PK were like, oh, this is easy. Isolated raw in the mid lane. I'm just going to tier 2 tower dive this. Adapting does, finds the kill, does ultimately die, but then the 3-for-1 gave them the enhanced fire giant. 37-minute mark, yet again, the calculation of the Mad Guy's Cloak and the realization that this raw is only with the Chronos as well. I could at least do 75% of his health, force out so many relics. It was the shell, it was the Terra heal, the Terra ultimate, and all those things combined was still not enough to save the life of Dardez and Funballer.
Well, now a chance for the Knights to close out the scorching hot Renegades in a 3-0. And I think it was fine, okay? Someone on the end of that rival set was telling us they were picking the Knights to win this 3-0.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it coming in this match. They had that much faith in the Knights, especially after Renegades just beat Dig. But now a chance for them to potentially be correct if the Knights can close this set out. I'd be very surprised even still. The Renegades have been close in both these matches, which means they have a really good chance, I think, to find one here. I'd be very surprised if this team were to go down without a win.
Yeah, this would definitely give PK a lot of momentum if they can find a 3-0 victory. Already basically clinching the MSI with their current record. So anything extra, any additional wins is just going to increase their standings from here on out. And after that last game, I think Deathwalker had enough of Nika's aggression.
Absolutely, getting taken down twice in that early game. Definitely doesn't want to repeat that one. The Camazotz wasn't just not quite getting it done up against the Osiris, so they stripped that one away. The Jing is also gone too.
And I wanted to talk about that match matchup between Nika and Deathwalker. I don't think Deathwalker necessarily respected Nika, because that very first solo kill, I went to take a look at the replay there, and he had his ultimate up. He used his first ability instead of using that Bat Out of Hell just to disengage under his tier 1 tower. The second solo kill was because Deathwalker uses the ultimate too early during the Osiris tether to prevent the stun, looks for poke, and then still tries to box an Osiris that has 16% physical damage mitigation during that passive.
And you don't expect that from Deathwalker. That first death where he holds the ult instead of using it, it's something where you expect him to be able to use it and recognize how much danger he's in, but unfortunately took a spill. Luckily, if you're a Knights fan, though, they're able to recover and grab the win. Now in this second set, with Yorm, Amuzin Cobb, Jingwei, Achilles band, that means there was no ban on this Merlin. Wow. Dardez now gets to snatch that pickup for himself. Not only do the Knights let the Merlin through, they pick Osiris over it, clearly believing that they're capable of taking this pick down.
Yeah, I think Deathwalker is tired of Nika, honestly. And also, this could enable him to be aggressive now, maybe look for his own solo kills. But I think Nika is very comfortable in terms of playing defensive and waiting it out. By the way, Arthur is still available for Nika if he wants to run it. And I'm expecting Deathwalker to maybe look for some speed buff shenanigans to start.
Wow, Zyrhoes is really valuing this soul. They've picked it up now for him 3 times in a row. The Fafnir will be right there with them now for the 3rd time in a row as well. And you add in the Osiris. They have a lot of the combo that's worked so well for them, and now you add the Osiris to it. This could potentially be scary for Renegades, but Bellona, Terra, Merlin, very good in its own right.
Now, Bellona makes a little bit more sense because the pre-Gladiator shield laning phase allows Bellona to stay aggressive against Osiris because of the 30 health you get for every 3rd basic attack during the holding the whip. That's what you're going to be leaning on if you're Nika battling this aggressive Osiris.
Bellona matchup makes some sense. Renegades don't like the dodgy matchup, though. They banned that one away, not wanting to get pulled back in. Though I don't know, man. I might be more worried about the Mercuries and the Arachnes of the world with the way that Adapting has played so far. I mean, they'll have a chance with the second ban to ban that one away if they want to ban the Mercury or if they even want to grab it for themselves. Hard not to imagine, though, that that's not what Adapting would want in a world where Renegades don't take it.
I was going to say that if you're banning Dodgy, you're probably going to ban away the Fafnir as well because you're worried about displacement.
Sure.
No CC immunity for the Terra or the Merlin. Bellona doesn't want to use Eagle's Rally defensively, but instead it's the Mercury ban respecting that Game 1 presence.
I think that they're right to ban it, but I get what you're saying. It doesn't seem as if you're banning the same thing with those 2 bans, yes. Right? Which does seem a little bit different. They're worried about the Mercury for sure, but then also getting a little bit punished by the beads burning and cooldown burning up that dodgy. So they take both out. Arachne still up, so likely that's where Adapting will drop down, but he still has plenty of options. Over on the Knight side, though, they're also trying to target the jungler. They take away the Unbots from Cherryo. They got one more pick with which to try and strip something away from him. Cherryo went with the Kali once already, and the Naja. One of those can make for good bans.
I think maybe just ban away the Naja. I wasn't too impressed by the Kali. It didn't get to the late game form the way that he would have wanted to. PK have been relatively aggressive in both games from the start to finish. Now, I was going to suggest that Cabrakan shouldn't be banned here because PK has great ways of dealing with it. Fafnir can jump over the wall. Osiris passive just literally walks through the wall, and Soul has enough time to buy with a Disapparate to walk around it. So I'm actually surprised that that wasn't a Naja ban.
I am also surprised that they're this worried about the Cabrakan. Maybe they don't want to enable this extra really strong magic damage dealer to go along with the Merlin, plus some Hunter. Maybe that would be difficult for them to contend with later on, as they hovered this Kumbhakarna last game, but didn't actually pick it up. Remember, they ended up passing on this last time. I still think it would be good.
It's not a Kumbhakarna pick because then you would have to play the Bellona in the jungle. Kumbhakarna would go support, Terra in the solo lane. A very passive matchup of Osiris versus the Terra. So it doesn't make sense to me why they're even hovering over the Kumbha.
It is curious. Maybe he's near the H's, so they're just chilling for a little while. Kumbhakarna's near the Hachiman. I imagine pretty close.
H-I-J-K.
Yeah, that's got to be what it is, right? Yeah. Maybe that's part of it. Hachiman, though, certainly makes plenty of sense in his own right. If you can't have the Fafnir, Hachiman can kind of mini Fafnir for you all with the Heavenly Banner and still accelerate the attack speed, which means perhaps they're still considering trying to have some synergy between the Hachiman, the Bellona, and maybe even a jungler with some auto attack focus in their own right. Obviously, the Knights are very likely going to go that route, but in RNG Renegades, they tried to match that in Game 1. Maybe they'll try and match it here again.
I mean, if they're going for a basic attack jungler to get that Heavenly Banner prod, Rock and maybe Shogun's Kusari, depending who wants to build it. I'm looking at gods like Kali, Bakasura maybe,
Bakasura.
Arachne maybe even for Renegades.
Interesting. Looks like the Knights are the ones that are going to pick up the Kali for adapting to give them a ton of late game presence. And of course, you know, some danger in the mid game. If you end up getting isolated by this Kali, she can absolutely run you down. They'll pair the Chernobog with it. This gives them some rotational power as well.
We were talking about all the basic attack junglers that Renegades could pick up, but we forgot that PK could definitely synergize even further with the Fafnir Coerce, and adding on top of the Kali, the Soul, is going to be the Chernobog, a god that can already steroid himself. So this is going to be looking like a very fast, objective, shredding comp out of PK.
This is exactly what the Knights love to run, though. It worked so well for them in game number 1, and no reason why it can't work as well here as the Bastet being hovered. That, I mean, we don't see a whole lot of Bastet nowadays anymore, but maybe some chance to get back there and dive.
There is, definitely, especially against the Soul, Chernobog, maybe forcing the dash, the ultimate out of Chernobog, even the Disapparate out of the Soul. Being able to pounce in and out of the action is good.
Makes more sense.
But yes, something that, you know, Cherryo is just bread and butter pick. Doesn't synergize as well with the Raw compared to game number 2, but if you're looking for a consistent poke between the ring bounces, between the slows from Merlin's Blizzard, especially if Dardez picks up that Gem of Isolation, could allow Renegades to force longer team fights.
There's going to need to be a lot of focus, I'm feeling like, on this Scourge. If this Kali can get to the back line and sit on top of Merlin, even with the flicker,
that's a problem.
Blinking in first, then jumping, yeah, very good chance that she can get that kill. Maybe that Scourge the disarm by a little bit of time for him to get away.
There's also going to be a disarm from the Fafnir as well to kind of deal with the Hachiman.
That's right. Maybe try and return that favor over to the other side, see if they can all slow down the auto-attacking. Game number 3, Renegades, the red-hot team, in danger of being stopped right in their tracks. Let's get on over to the game.
Well, if Renegades are red hot, then what does that make Pittsburgh Knights? Just out of control? I mean, blue hot, right? It's hotter.
Well, isn't a blue flame technically supposed to be a hotter flame
There it
than,
is.
you know, a standard one?
But
so.
they're black and yellow, so I don't really know where to go from there. But Pittsburgh Knights, they know where to go from here. They've done this a number of times. 3-0 is what they're looking for on their minds. Renegades, on the other hand, trying to bring this one to a game 4. A Merlin is certainly a nice way to start that. And bread and butter Naja is certainly a nice way to end that. Dardez has no idea what to do. In-game or out-of-game, it seems like. Ooh, the burn! We'll see how game 3 goes.
Oh, poor Dardez, too. Oh, he's been trying his best, that's for sure. But adapting just seems to have all the right answers to this mid lane. And Dardez on the Merlin, I mean, everything is going to come down to positioning here.
It really will be. It really will come down to positioning. Here's the thing, though. Renegades team fight perhaps better than the other 9 teams in the league. They have one of the best team fights. And I think what also works out really well for Renegades is their ability, their 1v1 potential is very strong as well. So you see a lot of this 4v4, 1v1 scenario. Nika wins, and there's a 4v4. Or Funball wins, and there's a 4v4. I think the problem here is that Pittsburgh Knights have given Vote the Chernobog. He likes this pick, and we've seen this time and time again, where you aren't allowed to fight without Vote. Renegades might look for that, and Vote's going to show up and kind of blow everything up.
And that's the problem for Renegades now, is that because Vote has this global potential, you can't really afford to risk getting low even. I think it's fair to assume that if somebody falls to 30% or lower, Vote at level 5 is probably going to be looking to try and make a rotation happen, because even though he might miss out on a little bit of early lane XP from the waves, it's still worthwhile if he at least walks away with an assist from his rotation.
I always talk about when you have Neith or Nuwa on the enemy team, you are never at 100% HP. You're always at 90%. And if you have 10% HP, 5%, you're just dead because they're going to ult you. That's the same idea like you said. If you're at 30%, Vote's showing up. And he's saying, what up, dude? And we know that Vote is not afraid of taking any sort of aggressive fights. The Scotsman has been very, very adamant about looking for those 1v1s. Dardez gets stunned and jumped on, but adapting immediately. Shunned away by iRaffer. Nice look.
Adapting was looking for the follow-up after Dardez's beads wore off. but couldn't find the stun in time. Dardez able to get just one step too far underneath that T1 tower in the mid lane, so both sides just going to look for the soft reset, and three-man grouping still holding strong for the most part, but Adapting might be paying an early visit to Funballer, actually.
Yeah, Funballer has no idea either. The Kali's going to show up behind him. There's the dash forward from Vote, causes Funball to turn around. Needs a dash.
And that's all Adapting wants. He'll be hitting level 5 by the time that both Dardez's and Funballer's Purification Beads are back up off cooldown. And if that's the case, I mean, he might be able to pay a visit to both of those lanes before they get an opportunity to hit 5 themselves.
It's absolutely true. With that said, I mean, Kali doesn't need the ult to kill. Can absolutely go back in lane as soon as Adapting feels like it, to be honest with you. It's just a matter of, you know, how much of an opportunity he has.
It's a little bit tough, though, because Adapting doesn't have Blink as his first
That's
relic.
true,
and
actually.
reasonably so for him to opt for the beats here. He is against a Ninja. It'd be a little suicidal, I think, at a competitive level to not take the beads into this matchup. But with that being said, all Funballer realistically has to do is hug that duo side wall. We've seen so many Hunters in Season 6 fall to this strategy where they just are aware of the fact that no one can blink on them. If I just hug this wall and make it my new best friend, they're not going to show up in my lane.
That's some of the stuff we were talking about when you mentioned positioning, right? Dardez needs to make sure that he's using that wall and everything else to make sure that he can't really be jumped on. Dardez, Merlin, very highly sought after. Everybody loves talking about this guy and how much damage he brings, but, and I know how silly this sounds, rather immobile. He's got a blink, I get it. But that's really where people have talked about Merlin's downsides, is the fact that once that blink is on cooldown, you can kind of jump on top of him and deal with him that way.
Well, you have to remember, Flicker is such an incredibly long cooldown in comparison to most. I don't see it as your best bet of an escape. Can it work in an instant? Sure, but with the amount of follow-up that Pittsburgh Knights drafted for, I think very much with that in mind, it's not going to be Adapting who's forcing out the Flicker. That's up to EmilZy. That's up to Deathwalker. And then we're going to expect to see Adapting look to follow that up later on. Probably one more time. This is probably going to be another slow-paced match. Just keeping it real with you folks back at home who are watching and tuning in.
You see the Kali,
this is
you think
competitive
that?
SMITE. That is just teams that are good are not going to take unnecessary fights. And a lot of times, there's a lot of unnecessary fights in that 0 to 13 minute spectrum.
All the time. EmilZy looking to start an unnecessary fight. A fight over the left camps may be necessary. But we see that a lot. You know, you and I also cast the minor league and the console league, which a lot of those teams do struggle. Shout outs to the squads. I do love me some Hype Unit. I do love me some Flashpoint. I think there are some good teams there, but not all of them. Really what I'm saying is when you see different levels of play, also shout outs to my extremely good gold games, you sit there and go, why are you fighting? If you win this fight by red buff, that's down by the way, what do you get? And if you answer that question honestly, it's a kill. A kill is, I've been saying this stuff after the stuff for 7 years now at this point almost. 6 years, 5 years. Like, you got to look for, there's got to be a reason for those kills. And when you see these top-end teams, they're just, if there's no reason to fight, they just won't. So, farm is the name of the game for sure, especially when like I said, when you see a character like Kali.
And don't get us wrong, that's not to say that they're not trying to do anything either. It's just that more often than not, these teams are able to recognize where they can be proactive in terms of trying to generate initiations.
For sure.
And instances where you understand, okay, I just need to fall back here. I can't really get much rolling. Just like now, Adapting, trying to pay a visit over to Nika, and this could be an early spill for the Bologna.
There's the jump in. It's going to miss Adapting. Just still feeling good. And again, let's ask ourselves this question. What does Adapting get off of this kill? Blue buff is down. The solo lane pressure and that lead for Deathwalker in and of itself is enough. So even with a small play like that, you can see why he's going for that kill.
And Adapting and Deathwalker could have gone for the kill. Even after Adapting missed the initial tick of damage that his jump would have given onto Nika, Adapting had the ultimate. It was definitely feasible for the Kali to dive there. But the risk versus reward is what you have to ask yourself in that on-the-fly instance. And Adapting just able to recognize if they died, if Nika up-downs with the Eagles rally and just happens to catch Adapting underneath that T1 tower an instance too long, and then Renegades rotate for it, suddenly it's Cherryo or Nika with a massive lead.
That's exactly, risk versus reward is kind of the entire game here, right? Nika in some trouble, battling back. Look at that healing though. The Scourge plus the Berserker shield just, I'm
just out of curiosity, Doug, do me a favor and see if Nika has been leveling that Scourge or not. There is a chance that he might be opting. Yep, it has been full points towards that Scourge.
Cherryo gonna get jumped on. The beads will avoid the root. Here comes Vote, never alone. 4 players jump on top of Cherryo.
And an absolute nightmare for Funballer, no pun intended, off of Vote's living nightmare. But the fact that he rotates in, gets the first blood bounty, more than worth it.
And if you're Funballer, you're sitting there like, I didn't even do anything wrong and I'm losing my lane.
You guys had one job.
Like, come on, man. I'm not even losing lane and I'm losing lane. What is that? That's gotta hurt.
It's tough, but with that kill having gone into Vote's hands, now it's up to Funballer, I think, to try and... He could still be a little bit aggressive, I think, because Hachiman has such easy poke with the Heavenly Banner against the Chernobog. It's going to be tough for Chernobog to get away from that. So I definitely still feel as though Funballer has 1v1 potential, but I think it's more so the ball's in Vote's court. He just has to sit in that lane and farm. He's got the full Transcendence online now. Warrior Tabai has been finished off already for this Chernobog, and now he can just sit, build his stacks, and the next time that Living Nightmare is available, Pittsburgh Knights, they don't necessarily need to take fights that look pretty at the start. They just need to get targets low so that when Vote does decide to rotate, it's already too late for the Renegades to back out.
And then if the game gets later, Adapting can show up as well. Doesn't have the global ultimate, but Akali is certainly a character that's going to help finish the players off on the other side. So you've got to watch out for a number of different folks here on the side of Pittsburgh Knights. Their ability to just finish the fight is certainly very strong as far as the draft is concerned. I did give proper props to Renegades though with respects to their team fight. I think they have an absurd team fight as far as their players are concerned. So, you know, I look at Dardez, I look at what happens here, and there's a lot going on.
Nika in a lot of trouble right now. Fortunately enough, that T1 tower still being a nice little 6-mana defense for the Renegades and helping Nika out, but Adapting has just been relentless on this solo lane so far. We've seen Cherryo kind of get drawn towards it 1 or 2 times before, but never really actually jumping in.
Yeah, just trying to play it really safe instead. There's Deathwalker, Cherryo and Nika surrounding him, half HP on DW. Cherryo trying to get out. Nika's here as well, but Adapting has shown up, and this is going to be problematic. The up-down is good, but again, Vote all the way from the left side lane. Nika goes down, Adapting will trade out. It's a 1-for-1. Vote gets another assist.
And it's that little bit of participation. He gets the kill, not just the assist. That is what continues to just keep Funballer at bay, because if Funballer tries to rotate, he's going to be there way too late, and now Vote, since Nika is the one who died, he can just continue to threaten this T1 tower. He's already got it down to about 40% health. And Funballer could possibly respawn, but EmilZy's going to rotate and cover for his Chernobog just to ensure that Renegades really get nothing out of this. But I do like the fact that Nika was able to create something out of nothing.
Yeah.
Because finding a pick there in return, even though it came as a pro bono of the tower, it's still very needed to keep the Pittsburgh Knights not fully escalating things out of control.
Absolutely. I mean, that's been a real big deal. Nika has been under pressure the entire game. Adapting has lived in this lane with Deathwalker. Nika's done a great job, if I'm being honest, of just staying alive, just doing what he's supposed to do. Trades out there, finally goes down, but trades out, like you said, makes something out of nothing. So, a nice play there coming out from the short side. 11 on the clock, and Pittsburgh Knights slightly ahead. 1,000, give or take, 2-1. Very, very close game.
Deathwalker now, I think, just trying to poke his head towards Cherryo's farm, and this is where that aggression from adapting could start to have a bigger impact on the match from solo side, because now Deathwalker isn't just satisfied with trying to pressure out Nika in the lane. He's looking for Cherryo in the jungle. Vote as well, feeling a little bit more frisky for those 1v1 exchanges between himself and Funballer, but Funballer still getting the better end of these trades and probably will continue to do so until Vote gets some sort of sustain online.
That's what he's looking for. And with the build, it's not coming next. Maybe he's not looking for it. Usually we see the Aussie come out in this build, not this item, but a third, like a 1, 2, 3, 4th item. I can count. Usually we see the Aussie come out to supplement the Transcendence build, since it has no lifesteal on it.
I think it depends on the hunter and the player as well.
Very true.
For Tournament here, it's fair, I think, for Vote to want to look for a brawlers, Jotuns even, I think is still a plenty reasonable option, especially with how often he's been rotating already.
Yeah.
Having 30% cooldown reduction now, thanks to that evolved Transcendence, is only going to help out the Pittsburgh Knights for creating even more instances to fight around.
It makes sense. It certainly makes sense. Would you expect Vote to go Bloodforge maybe later on?
He could go for the Bloodforge as a finishing item, but
There is the
I think
Jotuns,
that that's
by the way.
more so for the 5th, 6th. I think that when you buy the Jotuns, you're still pretty flexible as for the rest of your build pathway. You can choose to prioritize even more of the Mace Tree, maybe throw in a Crusher or a Brawlers. There is some team sustain from Renegades thanks to that Terra, even the Naja, and Funballer obviously with the Devos, so that could be a promising look for Vote, or you could just opt for an Executioner.
Could go a number of different ways, so we'll keep an eye on Vote's build and see what he chooses to do with the Chernobog. Nika getting jumped on under the tower. Deathwalker really looking for it. Just don't think it's going to be there, though. Nika doesn't have the teleport either.
Deathwalker wants this kill so badly. He might even get a little bit of a helping hand from Vote. It all depends, though. Seems as though this Chernobog's still holding off on actually deciding to commit here.
Yeah, this is about time. Cherryo shows up. Deathwalker been a little bit too active in this lane. The wave has been pushed up. Cherryo looking for the ring bounce, and the tower will stand.
Surprised that adapting doesn't just kill that T1 tower while the creep wave was still there, but he might have been expecting a rotation to take place a little bit sooner there from the Renegades. The way that Deathwalker and adapting disengaged, it definitely felt like they were concerned about getting caught out.
Absolutely. They were, you can see there's not a lot of vision. There's one ward right here by the blue buff, and then one over by the mid lane. If somebody from Pittsburgh, or excuse me, somebody from Renegades had come the long way, they would have been surprised. So not the safest.
Something I do want to point out, though, is that Nika actually went for the Frostbound Hammer. Zyrhoes, though, with his own spot of trouble in the mid lane. Cherryo trying to find that last little tick of damage. Supernova going to be expended behind him out of panic, but EmilZy already had his back.
Totally clean. Just didn't even need it. I guess that's a win for Renegades, but whatever. I think that's fine.
No
for
trust.
Pittsburgh.
Zyrhoes doesn't trust EmilZy. We all know the truth.
That's it. Team breakup. More at 11. Just kidding.
It is interesting, though, that EmilZy probably calls it, but it's not that Zyrhoes doesn't trust him.
It's
Don't
muscle
get-
memory. It's.
It
you
really
know,
is just, you expect the follow-up there.
Yeah, it happens. It happens all the time. And you see it a lot. I think the most with Geb play, even at this level. But especially think about your games that you play at home. The amount of times you hit beads, even though your Geb shields you and saves you from that CC, you're like, oh, well, okay. It just happens. It just happens. And so I won't bust Zyrhoes too much for that. I think that's totally fair.
But Pittsburgh Knights know that Renegades just expended a decent amount to try and bring down Zyrhoes.
It's all back. Deathwalker looking for the fight, though. Raffer less so. Again, a reset here for Renegades in Pittsburgh.
But going back to that discussion of Nika with the Frostbound Hammer, I feel like there could be some difficulty surrounding this, just like Cherryo trying to get away right now, but Lord of the Afterlife is going to be expended, and Deathwalker still trying to give chase.
Ooh, that's not going to be enough. Ring bounce just barely effective. Bit of a team fight here, waiting for the full commit. Damage being tossed out, but nothing fully intending to really bring the cows on. This is going to force it out, though. Pittsburgh Knights start the Gold Fury, and they leash it. It's already down to 25 before they leave. Nika with a bad ultimate, if I do say so. Some extra damage after the fact, but that's going to be that.
I don't know if I'm in as much disagreement. Sure, he doesn't connect onto anybody, but the fact that he dropped the protections in that area around the Gold Fury pit, it prevents Pittsburgh Knights from wanting to continue the engagement. They opt to just drop the objective and back off entirely. And Renegades, they're the ones who had vision to begin with over the Gold Fury. They also were able to confirm the oracles.
You know, the prots, that Eagles rally was on the right, not correct, the left versus right, the right side of the Gold Fury. And that's why I said it was kind of awkward. I figured Pittsburgh would just go into the Gold Fury pit and fight there, but then I guess you drag the objective into the team fight. I will amend my statement. I'll take that back, Nika. Sorry, buddy.
I think Nika just wanted to create space.
Yeah, just the true zoning ultimate.
If you've got a Bologna ulting in, usually that means that the enemy team is about to gas pedal in on with them. But if Nika's just going to expend the ult and Pittsburgh Knights are going to disengage off that alone, then it's probably just better left to kind of let them fall back on their own accord.
I agree. I agree with that. Certainly. Anytime you start playing on, you know, your opponent's game plan is when you're doing it wrong. You always want to play your own game, so see where they're going and then make adjustments.
But that's kind of just the thing, isn't it? This has kind of felt like the Renegades are playing Pittsburgh Knights game.
And I think that's why they have 2 losses.
It hasn't felt at all like the Renegades we've been seeing. And I'm not sure if it's like player-specific matchups that are causing things to be a little bit more problematic for Renegades here, but Pittsburgh Knights just feel like they're constantly in control.
Always. And that's tough, because I think for Renegades, they've, in most of their games, felt like they've been in control. They've had some kind of back and forth that they've won in the late game, but realistically, Renegades have looked like a very strong team. Frenzy encourages Pittsburgh Knights to stick on the objective, and it's close, but they'll walk away with it. Renegades think about the push. iRaffer has ulted, but I think it's just going to be a walk away here, Taco. Nothing to really gain.
Nothing for Pittsburgh Knights to lose either. All their buffs are waiting to respawn, and Renegades, their best bet can maybe be a T1 tower push opportunity in the mid lane, possibly even looking towards this Pyromancer. Funballer will start to make his rotation over, and Dardez just zoning everyone away with the Merlin.
There's a little bit more. No. That's exactly what I expected. I expected to see Renegades kind of get out of here. I think sitting here right now is probably a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Optimistic.
It's dangerous. I honestly think it's just dangerous from the Renegades to be that far pushed up, because you never think about how game 2 ended and how quickly Renegades collapsed, and that was off of Adapting blinking in. And Adapting just decided he wanted to blink in because he saw everybody grouped up, so he's like, hey, why not?
Yeah, no, I asked him in between games. I just said, hey, Kenneth, real quick, how did that last team fight call go? He's like, I can't say exactly what he said, but he was just like, I freaking blinked on him. I was like, did you guys talk about it? He goes, no, I blinked on him. That's all he said. And that's exactly what it looked like. Pittsburgh Knights just, they can do that at a moment's notice. And again, to go back to the old Adapting teams, that's what he does. He just goes in there and makes it happen.
If it works, it works.
Yep.
Sometimes you need that level of spontaneous.
Yeah, that just surprise, here I am. Looking for some bite.
Especially in matches like this where both teams, I think, they're not really biding their time right now. It's just, if it looks questionable, they're down to get out. And I say there because it applies to both of these teams. Renegades and Pittsburgh Knights are not looking for an engagement if they feel like it's not going to be favorable. The second that red flag pops up, you'll see one or the other bail out immediately.
And that's kind of what I was talking about, I think, in game number 1, where we see these teams and these players. Actually, it wasn't even on broadcast. I was talking to Pretty Hair, one of our other commentators here, and talking about how these players just know the game so well that they just get in and out. Cherryo gets out. Funball on his way, trying to, and will do just that. Players identify. You're so aware of how much damage you can take that by the time you've started to take the damage, you've identified if you can win or lose the fight. You know, I've on a very base level, there's a lot of factors to go in, but you look at a hunter and you go, can I win if I just hold left click? And if the answer is no, you leave.
But look at that shred onto the Pyromancer. Nika as well could follow suit, forced to Eagles rally away. Dardez as well going to drop a little bit of an ice storm. So the Renegades are safe to split apart from Pittsburgh Knights, but adapting, he gets the mounted archery out of Funballer, Windfire Wheels from Cherryo, beads as well from Cherryo, and he doesn't need to push for more. Could have probably chosen to dive Funballer if he really wanted to, but player discipline is what you're going to see more often than not from these veteran members of the league, and adapting is definitely one of them. And so as soon as he gets what he's after, which is essentially a force out of survivability from Renegades as carries, then that's the go-ahead sign for Pittsburgh Knights that they can look for a Pyromancer. And one more time, Pittsburgh Knights just continue to play their own game, and Renegades, sometimes they respond, sometimes they're able to find counter picks or you know, counter initiations, but it just keeps feeling more and more like everything they do is only a response to the Pittsburgh Knights.
And I feel exactly, and I think that Renegades have gotten their victories off of playing their own game. They come through and they pick Soul for Funball. They let iRaffer kind of walk into the opposition and get in trouble. Cherryo's playing Kamarakin, and even if he's feeding, the team gets the wins. Renegades are a squad, well, I don't even want to say that. Every team needs to play their own game. The moment you get goaded into playing somebody else's game, well, you're on their home court now. You're doing what they want you to do. And I mean, this is one of the older things in gaming. Anytime you give your opponent a choice instead of telling your opponent what to do, you're already doing it worse than ideal. Pittsburgh Knights have not given Renegades a choice. They go, adapting's going to jump on you. How do you respond? Zero's going to ult you. How do you respond? Vote is going to ult to every team fight, and how do you respond?
Zyrhoes, by the way, I know he's played Soul all 3 games and is probably sick of the god by now, but this could not have been a better decision from the Pittsburgh Knights to strip that pick away from the Renegades, because I think it shuts down a lot of the compositions that Renegades like to work around.
It does, and the Chronos is a nice little adaptation, but the Soul is really like the cornerstone.
It's that objective play, man. These teams prioritize objectives over everything else because you need the Pyromancer, Gold Fury, Fire Giant most of the time. Sometimes you don't need the Fire Giant. We've seen plenty of games end with or without him, but
yeah,
it's the push potential off of one pick, and that's why I think more and more we've been seeing a little bit of this dominoes effect with the higher end teams where they get one kill and they don't care about anything else on the map or what towers might be left standing still. They will chase you until the end of the world.
Just all the way down. Oni Fury left at half HP. Deathwalker surrounded. He'll be slowed. Dardez still being chased, but Deathwalker behind enemy lines by himself. Here comes the rest of the Knights, and Cherryo's going to take one to the sky. Zyrhoes waits for his landing, but Adapting's still alive. Nika not so much. That said, Funball takes care of EmilZy. Adapting on 1 HP. Renegades try to find him, and Dardez cooks him up with the flames. Deathwalker in trouble as well, but it's Zyrhoes. He's chasing Funball. Who's chasing who? Cherryo gets vote. Dardez gets Zyrhoes. 4 players sit down. And Pittsburgh Knights previously leading with the Gold Fury, that's a lead change.
Oni Fury gonna get gobbled up by the Renegades. A heads-up play there from Dardez. Notices everybody playing Ring Around the Rosie with Funballer, and shout-outs to Funballer as well there, man. I mean, talk about the bait of a lifetime against the Pittsburgh Knights. And the damage is relatively even between these two teams, but it's the way the target damage was spread why we see Renegades coming out on top.
Exactly. Target prioritization. One of the important things when you're in the team fights, a lot of times you're calling out relics. Beads on EmilZy. Aegis used by the carry, right? There's Athena taunt down. You can kind of count those in your head. But one of the absolute biggest things is what you were talking about for sure. Being able to keep that in mind is how you maneuver through these team fights and how you wind up the victor. Renegades come up out on top, tie the game with an Oni Fury, arguably put the ball in their court. They get a tier 1 tower on the right side as well. The only thing that remains is tier 2s here for Renegades to take care of. And now they're looking for a team fight.
Might not even be just the team fight. Could just be this T2 tower alone. But Renegades do have the stronger positioning around the Enhanced Fire Giant now. They've been able to drop a couple of deeper wards against the Pittsburgh Knights, which I'm sure the Knights are going to look to counteract, but EmilZy will have no such luck in stealing that Pyromancer away. Vote going to be able to push the T1 tower, though, on the opposite side of the map, and for the most part, Pittsburgh Knights white, but they don't lose too much off of it.
Vote going in here. Dash into the wall. iRaffer looking for both options. iRaffer getting hit up by the rest of Pittsburgh Knights. Vote makes an interesting play, but will get out of there for it. There's Deathwalker isolated one more time. Renegades now collapsing on the solo laner. One will get stunned. It's iRaffer, though. There's the dash. Deathwalker rooted again. There's the kill. What a strange situation. Vote jumps over and baits his solo laner into a very bad engagement. Renegades start to look at the Fire Giant.
Vote was screwed if he stayed in place, though, because he had Cherryo and Funballer looking to collapse onto him. Nika's going to go ahead and try to drop the Eagles Rally right on top of Zyrhoes. EmilZy doing his best to try and get away. Going to be able to jump over the wall in that draconic form of Fafnir. Adapting as well, also on the chase, but blinks away from the Fire Merlin stance, and just like that,
easy.
Renegades, they're left on a wild goose chase. And Adapting's more than happy to take him with them.
I don't know. Adapting could be in trouble. Cherryo's going to take him to the sky. Will he have time to activate the ultimate? No! Funball puts him down. Deathwalker with 10 more seconds. Renegades still afraid of the EFG.
Even with the staggered death timers, it took just a little bit too long for Renegades to pick Adapting. And they used a lot in the process, so I doubt that they really feel all that confident in pulling the Enhanced Fire Giant. If they get 2 picks at the same time, then yes, I think Renegades are all for Enhanced Fire Giant. But as of right now, Funballer does not have that crit-based build. Neither does Vote, so it's not like either team could bring down this objective all that quickly. It really just depends on Dardez.
Yeah, you need those double picks, like you said. Dardez able to get a couple of double kills already. I think it's just one. 3-0 and 2. The French mid laner. Renegades looking for the aggressive plays. Vote gets jumped on and destroyed. Funball on the good side as the enemy hunter falls down. Frenzy is popped, but Pittsburgh on the back foot. That is not how you want to see that Frenzy utilized. Renegades still here, healthy, looking cute, feeling cute.
Adapting, coming out of base now. Gonna stop by his speed buff first, though, as any jungler would.
Got him.
Enhanced Fire Giant will be pulled up, though, by Nika. Dardez doing what he can. A beads force out by Cherryo, but that Windfire Wheels was off the mark.
Still, I mean, that always looks real rough, but you were going to get your ultimate negated anyway. There is some initial damage that you lose. Cherryo running away. But hey, he got that adapting beads, and that's really the victory there. Renegades are going to be looking at that jungler for sure.
Oh, this could be trouble, though. Adapting, coming around the top
It goes
side.
the other way.
iRaffer's trying to escape where he can. Shell has been popped draconic form just to catch the slow, and now it's Renegades who are on the retreat. They might have overstayed.
Yeah, Nika's at half. Cherryo even lower. There's adapting with the ultimate. Cherryo brings him down, but the ult's good. Nika in trouble. Probably the target. Nika trying to get the kill. Still with the... Oh, no. Gonna slow. Yeah.
But the Renegades, they just took too long to pull the trigger. They couldn't make up their minds as to whether or not they should commit to the fight and the picks or trying to pull this Enhanced Fire Giant. I think if they all just stuck on this FG, Dardez and Funballer would have been enough to bring it down, but
I
they felt
agree.
like Pittsburgh Knights were too threatening, and so they kept trying to clash fire with fire. And in the end, Pittsburgh Knights, they just win the war of attrition.
Playing your composition is very important. Listen, if you pick a Kali, you're not trying to win the game at 12 minutes. You're trying to win the game late game because Kali destroys players, right? If you pick pressure in the mid lane, you should look for the invade after the fact. Dardez on the Merlin, it finally comes through. Now, Merlin does a ton of damage, sure. But he really he crushes objectives. If you're going to pick Merlin, I want to see that commitment to the objectives.
I do think Renegades probably should have at the very least looked to force T2 in solo or T2 in mid. The fact that they didn't go for either of those after pushing Pittsburgh Knights so far back, I don't know, just seems a little bit odd there. Like, there was hesitation in the shot call.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that. And, you know, we've been celebrating Renegades. Renegades are a fantastic story. But don't forget, we're 10 weeks into the Pro League, and because of issues here or there, kind of out of their control, to be fair to them, they've only played 3 sets. So watching them make a stutter step mistake in the shot call, I mean, maybe that's what we should expect, and the 3 wins are kind of the craziness.
I don't know if we could ask for a better example, though, of on any given day, any of these teams could win a set against the other. Raffer, though, could be in a whole world of trouble as Vo's going to come through to slow him down just a bit here, but all of Pittsburgh Knights chasing this Terra instead of pushing with their enhanced fire. I'm sure Raffer's more than happy to buy Renegades a little bit of time here, but how much time can you reasonably buy against this Kali?
Raffer's mad. He's like, can it leave me alone? Raffer wishing the ultimate was still global. We'll be trying to deal with the jungle Kali on the backside, and he's still alive for some reason. Raffer doing his best Benny Hill impression. Oh man, this is absurd. Raffer finally will shell.
He's buying all the time he possibly can for his team, because you got to keep in mind, Adaptix still has to make the whole trek back up the mid lane, but Raffer will be out for about a minute or so.
That Earth and Fury gone is a big deal.
Yeah, when he respawns, I don't think he'll have it available right away. They'll be cutting it close, though.
Yeah, it'll come.
It'll be up in time for the next fight, I'm sure, but that's only if Pittsburgh Knights don't end the game first. There is a chance, I think, once Adapting rejoins his squad, or Adapting could even look to just split push in the mid lane.
That's what I would like to see better. I think Kali is a 1v1 specialist. Shout outs to the duel community, all 17 of you. She can really kill people. So splitting into that 4-1 is a great look. Frenzy means fight. It's going to be a 5-on-5. EmilZy transforms. Adapting jumps back. Cherryo grabs his support. Everybody on the bottom waiting, and the bird will fall down. EmilZy will stand up. And Pittsburgh Knights walk away with their head held high. They got what they came for.
Perfect supernova placement there from Zyrhoes. Doesn't have to hit anybody, just needs to create space. That way when EmilZy lands on the ground, no one from Renegades is going to want to get close and get whacked by that supernova. Even the knockup could be enough time for Adapting to get on top of a target and stick to them.
I was talking about this in my stream last night. Soul knockup is garbage at low levels. It is phenomenal at top levels, and it all comes when we talk about the window that I keep mentioning. It's a tiny knockup, but these pros at this level of execution, that's all you need. A stutter step, and you can kill that player. And so Zyrhoes zoning out. We make jokes all the time, zoning ult. Absolutely a zoning ult.
If you've got a teammate up in the air in that wind, fire, and wheels, you can't help them from taking the damage of the wind, fire, and wheels. That's it. They're up there in the air now.
You all right, bud?
But when they come back to the ground, you're not meant to be sitting there waiting to try and bail your boy out. You're attacking whoever is from the enemy team that's corralled at the bottom, waiting for your boy to drop so they can apply their own damage. If you scare those people away from the enemy team, there's no one to deal damage after the fact, and that's exactly why EmilZy, even though he's 30% health when he landed on the ground, who from Renegades is going to want to commit against the Fafnir when there's a supernova right on top of him? No one is crazy enough to do that.
It's really really worth talking about. almost tied up as far as our kills are concerned. A very different story with our gold. I'll take that back, actually. Almost tied up with our gold. 11,000 is big, but we're only about a half item apart.
Yeah, it's that lead became irrelevant as soon as this game struck the 30-minute mark in my
You know, I
mind.
think boots are still, with Elixir of Speed, those boots do matter.
It depends.
But it's not an 11,000 gold lead right now, despite the fact that it's an 11,000 gold lead right now. You know what I'm saying?
That gold lead took place a while ago.
Exactly. It's
Once
more of a
everybody's got
history.
their 6th item, it's just anybody's game at that point. Well, I can't really say anybody's game. Renegades looked promising for a second. But you have to remember, Renegades did almost take control of Game 3.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh Knights know it. Renegades knew it.
And the way Pittsburgh has won the past couple of games, Renegades can do that here. If Cherryo gets the right target and they combine and all of a sudden 2 players die, well, now the 5-on-3, Renegades can kill, walk down the lane, get the win.
The problem is somebody has to get Adapting's Purification beads, because as long as he has beads,
Yep.
he is a threat. And sure, Nika can get the Magai's Cloak proc with the Scourge, iRaffer maybe with the Root, but it's just not easy
I
for
agree.
Renegades to get to this Kali. It's usually going to be the other way around, where Adapting gets to them first.
But that's the look. Zero's in big trouble. Deathwalker in trouble as well. Couple of shots for the Cherryo, and Dardez will confirm the kill onto the solo lane. Left side minions are attacking the Titan, so Renegades will fall back. One stop in the bank for Renegades as they successfully, that looked just like an odd play. Zero's kind of gets grabbed, Deathwalker looks to peel. That was just rough from Pittsburgh.
Zyrhoes just got exploded.
Yeah.
That's really all it came down to. And now Renegades are going to have an opportunity to get their left Phoenix up and running. Won't be a healthy bird, but at least it'll stop those fire minion waves, and it'll prevent the Pittsburgh Knights from being able to pressure that right side Phoenix as well, because if you don't have to worry about fire minions, you don't have to worry about losing that Phoenix most of the time.
That's that's the work, the homework that you've got to do. You've got to push this lane up since the opposition grabbed that Phoenix, and no problem there for Renegades. They're able to do just that. Gold Fury being looked at, and this is the Primal Fury, and I love this call by Renegades. They had trouble doing the Fire Giant earlier on, and so the 7% extra damage towards that objective is going to be a really big boon for Renegades. Oni Fury and Gold Fury are the ones that we talk about a lot. Primal Fury, it has a niche application, and this is it.
I think Adapting just has to go in, though. And it's going to be scary for sure, because there's a possibility that his beads won't even matter if
Yes.
he can't get his ult off in time. But someone has to get on top of Dardez. Merlin on
Yeah.
base defense is just so... It gives you migraines trying to siege into that.
It's certainly no fun, I'll tell you that much there. Adapting is the key to victory here for the Pittsburgh Knights. Make no bones about it. If the jungler finds the right target, he'll just waterfall through the team fight. Go from one player to the next, healing up as he's dealing down. So adapting certainly the power play for sure. Jungler will be on the right side. Jungler versus solo. Another 1v1 in the mid as Deathwalker deals with the other jungler.
This is smart, though, from Pittsburgh Knights, spreading Renegades as thin as possible with a 3-1-1 split. Eventually, something's got to give, but the clock is ticking.
Yeah, this is a great defensive maneuver from Renegades. They've neutralized another Fire Giant.
Almost starting to wonder if the Nats Fire Giant is even worth it at this stage for Renegades. They might just choose to not even bother contesting and just throw everything into Pittsburgh Knights. The ball's in Pittsburgh Knights' court, sure, but they've still got to score.
I would love to see Renegades go for the all-out team fight, without a doubt. I think that they've shown time and time again, composition irrelevant, that they just team fight better than a lot of teams. That said, Pittsburgh Knights might just be the team that they don't team fight better than. But Renegades certainly have shown that that's really where they're here to, how they will make their money in Season 6 is by just looking for the brawl.
It's always interesting to see how different player play styles can be kryptonite essentially
Go
to
ahead.
someone else's. And I think that this is mostly a breakdown between Cherryo and adapting. Because adapting, I think, is very methodical, and he's a very patient player. And I don't really get a lot of that patience aspect from Cherryo.
Interesting.
I think that Cherryo is someone who prefers to have a clear indicator of when to go in, and Pittsburgh Knights aren't giving him that.
I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Cherryo wants everything to be. That's why we see him play facilitators. He wants to say, the thing has been done. We can now go in. He wants frenzy means fight. You know. So with that in mind, Pittsburgh Knights have been playing a little bit more ambiguously, a little bit more amorphous. It's not, all right, they blinked and Geb cataclysmed. It's much more like, we're going to poke you down, push you around. All of a sudden, you're half HP and the world is falling down around you.
This is Pittsburgh Knights' best opportunity, though, because trying to get picks onto the Renegades underneath those Phoenixes is proving to be very problematic here. Renegades are all outside of their base right now, and really just have to emphasize how crucial it would be to find a pick onto Dardez, but Dardez just has this full frontline squad constantly surrounding him. It's Nika and iRaffer, just they look like his personal bouncers at this point.
They just might be. This is the moment where Renegades can fight, though. The Phoenixes are all up, and Renegades noticing their opportunity. I love this call. I love this call. You were saying, is the Fire Giant even worth it? Renegades are like, dude, what if we just do it? Pushing down the right side tier 2, vote on the left side of the map. He's nowhere near this fight, Taco. There's no way he can join, right?
But he can be there in an instant, so Vote's got the split push potential, and if somebody goes back from Renegades to try and stop him, well,
Yeah.
Vote might have that question answered for him. Deathwalker gonna actually Lord of the Afterlife in. Vote drops the Living Nightmare, hoping to join the fray, but that might have been a little bit too deep.
Deathwalker's half HP. Here comes a big boy ult from Zyrhoes, though. Him and Adapting combine to take down 2. Nika will be worm food as well. Funball answers back, taking down Adapting. And a great play by Pittsburgh Knights.
But it's Funballer and Dardez who are still alive, and instead of going for the Phoenixes, Pittsburgh Knights feel a little bit more comfortable with that Enhanced Fire Giant instead. I think this is smart, though.
Same.
Enhanced Fire Giant's going to remove 50% of those backdoor protections. I say it every time because there's always someone who doesn't know.
Yup. 50% of that's and you get additional stats as well compared to the regular Fire Giant, but that's really the big deal. A lot of times we see, oh, I want to push, but there's no minions. Now, who cares?
Well, it won't matter as much when Dardez inevitably clears the entire minion wave because he's Merlin. This could be trouble, though, for Funballer. If EmilZy's able to catch him out here, Hammerstone's good, going to force out those Purification Beads, but it's Adapting that Funballer now has to be on the lookout for. Fortunately enough, that Kali's still out of commission for a couple moments longer.
Push?
This is too risky.
Push?
Renegades want the Phoenix, or excuse me, Pittsburgh Knights want the Phoenixes, and then to bail out immediately.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Not just counting for the hell of it. iRaffer, Cherryo, and Nika had that as their cooldown timer, so I think absolutely the right call there from Pittsburgh is to look for the Phoenix. Again, player discipline. Very, very important play not to go for the Titan right there. Instead, an Oni Fury. Man, what a gift. What a gift. The Oni Fury on the side of Pittsburgh. They've already taken care of 2 of the Phoenixes, so one of those will be a Fire Oni wave. That basically is a player. That's a really big deal there.
Pings being spread. Zyrhoes and Vote both have red buffs intact. Adapting's got his speed. EmilZy just picked up that purple buff. This is looking good for Pittsburgh. They've got a lot of pressure now as well, with 2 lanes being exposed off of the Phoenix sieges. Renegades, it's almost starting to look like their 9 lives might be up. They've been holding on for a hot minute.
They really have been. They didn't even pick the best hit. They're still hanging on, though. Their last defensive set was real strong. I loved how they counter pushed on the right side. Back to base here. But with 2 Phoenixes down and an Oni Fury and Cherryo not in the team fight, this could be rough. Pittsburgh Knights not willing to go into it just yet.
Cherryo probably wanted to stay mid and clear out a few more creep waves, but EmilZy and Deathwalker just gonna look to chase this Ninja around, clear out the minion waves to ensure that those fire creeps hit the base of the Renegades. And if Pittsburgh Knights get all 3 Phoenixes, I don't even think that they necessarily need to find the fight. They can just slowly poke away at the Titan.
I agree. I agree, especially with the Oni stuff coming in. I think that's the Oni wave in the mid lane at the very least. And it will be. That's that red glow around them in addition to the fire. So that Oni wave is hard to deal with. EmilZy is going to jump in and immediately transform. Votes in the sky. He's looking for iRaffer. Dash to the way. Titan under attack by some Winions, so that brings Cherryo to the left side. 5 on 4, that means on the right side. EmilZy jumping in. Dardez low. Dardez gone. Adapting with the big boy play. There's trouble for Nika as he wiggles his way into the fountain. 3 games up and down. Pittsburgh Knights take this one.
Pretty hard fought set though at the very end there for the Pittsburgh Knights. It was looking questionable, not gonna lie. I thought Renegades for a second there were gonna be able to take that game back into their favor, but unfortunately the Pittsburgh Knights counter initiations to the counter initiation was a little bit better.
Rough faces there for Renegades as they find their first loss of the season. A short season though, as they've only been here for 2 of the 10 weeks. That said, they have beaten the #1 team, so if I'm Renegades, I think this is just more of a bounce back to reality.
Bounce back to reality for sure, but if I'm also the Renegades, I am not ashamed of that set in the slightest. I mean, this is, when you're talking about intense back-to-back competition, to go from Dig in one set and then Pittsburgh Knights the day after, that is a pretty rough back-to-back to be looking at there, and I think that the Renegades handled that incredibly well, and I'm even more excited now to see what happens heading into MSI, especially because Renegades beat Dig, but Dig beat PK, and now PK beat Renegades, so who's really #1?
That property doesn't work here. It's way too complicated. And the Renegades, we say, look, even those losses didn't look too bad. There's a lot going here for Renegades, but Pittsburgh Knights, that's the real story. Keeping it strong all the way long. 3 up, 3 down. Let's break it down on the desk.
A big bounce back here for the Knights, looking very strong here up against Renegades. I mean, 3-0 against a team that just beat Dignitas. I mean, it's hard to really explain just how impressive this win is for them. To do it in the manner that they did with a big win in Game 1, slightly longer, more drawn out in Game 2, and then this Game 3 really went the distance. They showed they can win in every way you can.
Definitely took a while because of the Merlin defense. Very hard to go past the Blizzard, past even the Arcane or the Fire stances. And like you were talking about, PK finding the victory over the team that defeated Dignitas when PK lost to Dignitas way back when in week number 5.
Yeah, I think this Knights team has had a chance to refocus. They spoke going into the bye week about how they didn't feel like they were performing at the level that they thought they should have. I mean, obviously they were happy to have won the matches they won, but they thought they were capable of more. And I think we're starting to see it here from this team, and they're multifaceted is what's so strong for me about this team.
This team fight at 31-minute mark was because of Cherryo's botched engagement. We didn't see the beginning in this highlight reel, but Cherryo tries to make a blink ultimate play on adapting, misses, gets out of position, and then his pathing was super awkward. He actually walks back into closer of Pittsburgh Knights instead of his teammates, and then everyone from Renegades tries to bail out Cherryo. They lose out their frontliner, Nika, iRaffer, and Cherryo dies, ultimately allowing PK to get the Fire Giant.
And they were able to go start to make some moves once they grabbed that FG. I remember around the 24-minute mark or so, I was noting to myself, man, Adapting's like 0-2 right now. He really hasn't done much. But also his colleague, they didn't pick him to be good in the first 20 minutes of the game. They picked him for exactly this scenario where in the late game, he only needed a small window to make him to allow him in. And I like what EmilZy did for this team, not just with the coerce, but he created so much space, taking up the tower. The frenzy was huge for them. That's what initially allowed them to get that first Phoenix Siege as well, popping stopping that and burning down the structure. This team gets it done from all levels.
The slash lines for both of these teams wasn't too impressive to look at. It was definitely a back and forth battle going the distance, and a lot of anti-attack speed coming through out of Renegades. It was the Witchblade coming through from iRaffer,
Right.
the Frostbound hammer, the Midgardian Mail coming through Nika, where he actually also went from Witchblade until he ultimately sold it for the Spirit Sword. But a little surprised not to see the horrific emblem from either side where they have those auto attackers.
They definitely could have used a few more tools, I feel like, from Renegades. At a certain point, they just kind of decided, what if we just start pushing? You know what I mean? They defend the right side Phoenix very well. Zyrhoes gets low, and they're able to get a pick on Deathwalker. But after everyone spawned up, all the relics are back up. Eventually, Renegades just kind of give it a try on the right side Phoenix. Just start kind of pushing over there. And I think that was the push that eventually ends up hurting them and opened up the door for the Knights to start pushing back.
And the early game pressure from Deathwalker's Osiris was really good. Even though he didn't get a solo kill on Nika, once he had a little bit of a gang coming through, he used that pressure to start bullying away Nika, being able to bully him out of lane while the teleport was still down, getting that tier 1 tower on the right-hand side, and also very important for Deathwalker to pick up that cursed Ankh against the Terra, upgraded very early in the game.
It was critical to try and slow them down because every time they would try and use the Frenzy to get started, it was Earth and Fury sort of in response to try and give them their own big AoE aura to try and hang out with them. It just was not enough. A really impressive 3-0 win here from the Knights. I'm actually excited. We have a chance to talk to Coach Rowe and Vote to hear their thoughts after that set. Let's see what the guys are thinking.
What's good? We're here with Rowe and, of course, the Vote Man, repping Pittsburgh Knights on the win. Rowe, I want to talk to you real quick. Renegades have come in real hot. There's not a lot to look at. They don't have a lot of games, but their team fights have been strong.
Yeah, they have.
You guys took over them. How was that job as a coach?
I mean, there was a fair bit to look at them. I know they haven't played as many games as the rest of the teams throughout the split, but they've played 3 games very recently, so a lot of that data is very relevant. Whereas if we look at teams that haven't played for a couple of weeks, it kind of has changed since then. The meta has transformed, so I felt like we had a lot of information on them, especially a big set yesterday, 5 games against Dignitas. Obviously, they're throwing their best out there, so we could see all that. We had the advantage in that we had Luminosity yesterday, so we could hide a couple things. No offense to them, but yeah. So we did save a couple of things, and in the end, I feel like us and Renegades ended up playing the same meta anyway. We just played it slightly better.
And Vote, this is actually going to be more geared towards you because you were the one actually experiencing it. And these are really long, drawn-out matches where there's not a whole lot of team fights going on. So from the player perspective, how do you choose to approach these types of sets?
I just aim to get the highest GPM possible because as an ADC, that's all I can really get to gloat about. And then when it comes to team fights, I just need to survive, basically. There was, like, I think the first game, they kept trying to Neith out Kali Blink on me like 3 or 4 times, and they just couldn't do it because Jing needs to be nerfed.
Out there just playing Farmville, scan your farm. That seems to work out for you guys, certainly bringing home the victories. When we see the move to best of 5s, right? The 3, when you guys used to win 2-0, there wasn't really much to talk about. It's usually a stomp. 3-0, not really a stomp. What's that feel like?
I mean, well, it's best case scenario for us. Like, if we make a lot of mistakes, then we have more to learn for, but yet we still got the perfect result. So as a coach, like, that's perfect for me. I can be proud of the result while also teaching ourselves a lot about it.
And I have to ask you guys, because Renegades just beat Dignitas, and you guys lost to Dignitas. So how are you kind of feeling about that matchup the next time you guys face off with Dig?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where we stand really. Our practice has always been really good. We lost to Dignitas when we didn't think we would. Lost to Rival when we didn't think we would. So we've always felt like we were the best, if not like in the top 3, like solidly. But really, I don't know where we stand. That's what we're waiting for MSI to find out.
Last question, I'm going to actually have you talk on the other team. Renegades, like we said, just a couple of games. What's your brutal, honest take? Are they the real deal? Are they a top team? How do you feel?
Vote.
I think they're pretty sick. I don't know, I think they're good, but they're not too good yet. They're not at our level.
I like the answer. Not on our level just yet. That's Vote and Coach Rowe. Thanks for your time. Congrats on the win. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you.
Glad to hear a little bit from Vote about what they think from the competition. Good, but not on our level yet. Hey, he might be right. I mean, right now, it's hard to think who could be on the Knights level. It's so close up there near the top. And I'm glad to hear Ro talking about the mid-season invitational. That's where we really are going to get to know those top 6 teams that make it, who's really the best.
Not on Pittsburgh Knights level, but apparently on Dignitas's level, basically taking away their undefeated streak. And with this victory, PK was already clenched to the MSI with 5 wins, but putting them to 6 wins in the standings allows them to climb the standings a little bit further.
That's right. Dignitas still up there at the top 7-1. Now Renegades take their first loss, though they've only played 4 matches up to this point, so they'll be sitting at 3-1. Though we still have quite a few teams who have yet to be able to find a win. Splice, LG, and Trifecta having some struggles at the bottom.
So far from my clinching scenarios, I have 2 things for sure. LG and Trifecta can't make it. The other part is Dignitas, PK, and Rival, with their current record, have clinched MSI. The other 3 spots from those top 3 is still up in the air between all those other 5 teams.
That's right. 5 teams battling for only 3 spots. That means someone's going to be left out, unfortunately, in this cool game of musical chairs that we like to play, moving towards the mid-season invitational. And really, that's the chance we get to find out, I think, for the first time, really who that best team is when they're going to be going up against each other. Even some minor league teams are going to be in the mix. The console teams will be there as well. So it certainly is a big event that we're looking forward to seeing everybody play there. But the mid-season invitational, it really does kind of feel like the warm-up big tournament, right? It's like phase 1, you make it to that. The real big one is towards the end of the year, though, when we can get these guys to Hi-Res Expo.
Hi-Res Expo is just so important. So you too at home can be able to get your tickets at highresexpo.com. You can meet Finch over there and giving out all those handshakes. You can meet me as well at the main event after party where I'll dance.
That's exactly right. That's really the main event for Tolly, is the after party where he gets to have a pretty good time. So you guys all absolutely don't want to miss out on that either. Not just going to be having a bunch of fun games, but a chance to meet some of your favorite players, coaches, whomever, even other people from the scene and some of your favorite community members. You absolutely don't want to miss out on that. But that's fun. That's way in the future. I know what you guys are thinking. I want to have a little bit of fun now. We have that for you guys in the game right now. Battle for Olympus is available. Grab some of these skins. Nuwa and Umbat are out there right now. The Howler Demon. He kind of looks scary. But he's kind of tiny, though, so it's hard to be
just
afraid.
the name. Yeah, you're right, though. Like, when we were previewing that skin, I'm like, oh, that's so cute. I just want to pinch his little cheek and put it in, like, my little side pocket.
He's definitely still a whole lot of fun. Don't want to miss that one out. Chapter 1 is going to be the very first one. The reward skin for that one is the Unichrome set. That's actually very, very cool. Going to make sure that you grab that one, too. I don't even know why you guys are still hanging around. Go grab the skins. What are you guys doing? Sitting around here. Open up SMITE, man. Get in there.
Yeah, I mean, after watching all those epic games today so far from Pittsburgh Knights up against Renegades, go home, play some ranked.
Yeah, play some Jormungandr in the middle lane, right? You're Zyrhoes if you're at home. Yeah, play some Jorm in the middle lane on the other team, not on my team.
Don't do that.
Yeah, on someone else's team.
Not my team.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed the SPL here this week. That is going to do it for it, but we still have plenty more action to go. This first phase is absolutely not done yet. SCL, SML, SPL, Esports Weekly, all that stuff is coming for you all next week. So get rest up over the weekend, and we'll see y'all next time.
The SMITE Pro League, brought to you by Titanforge, Hi-Res Studios, iNap, Respawn, SteelSeries, Alienware, and Skillshot.